Canola oil is one of the healthiest cooking oils. When the canola seed arrives at the processing factory, it contains foreign material, mostly plant pieces. The seeds pass by a magnet. It removes any metal that may have fallen in during the journey from field to factory.
What are you eating right now? Are you eating self-hatred? Well, we're back today for another discussion with our friend Suzanne Alexander, who has been making the rounds all over the internet, sharing your insights that you discovered when she recently visited and lived amongst the different tribes like the Maasai in Africa. She previously did a expedition around the Pacific Islands for some fascinating research, trying to find these are the last communities that have been isolated from the global food system as much as possible, although it's starting to encroach on their lands and their culture. But this is a very critical information because these are the last windows into the world before everything was globally homogenized into what we have today. So it's so vital to get this information right and to get it extensively documented and preserved, hopefully, their way of life, not just in information, but also that they can actually continue their way of life if they want, so that we can have a control, at least, at the very least, to have a control to see the difference between what everybody else in the world is eating versus the way humans used to eat. So, well, it's so great to have you on again.
Oh, David, thanks for having me here. I love our time. Although we're always texting each other, so we're together all the time. But I just appreciate the time that you give to me and how you help me all the time. I mean, we've been doing this. He's like my buddy for quite a few years now, and I just can't.
Yeah, I think we were your first podcast that you did, right? Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah. No, that's great. So it's good to have you on again, and people are very interested to learn. And so we're just going to pick up, if you haven't seen, for the sake of time, I would advise you, if you haven't seen the first part of our discussion with Susie about the or experience with the tribes in Tanzania, that you watch that first before you pick this one up, so that we don't have to recover everything we just said last time. So I want you to just take it away and start off. So we were talking, I think we left off kind of looking at what your estimated macro breakdown of protein, carbs, and fats would be for the amount of zebu milk that they're drinking, zebu milk being the type of cattle that they have in their tribe. And it's a little bit different from the macro
it's very
ratio.
Different than like we've got some cattle that are actually similar, but theirs is just so the thing about the zebu cattle, and there's different kinds. They're the ones that always have the hump. So any of the cattle that you see, we've got them in the United States, they have the hump. They're in that genre, they're in that family, but there's just different. So the one that we're going to be talking about today is the Desi, because that's the only one I can find on Chronometer, because that's what I use to measure macros and micros. And it's just, so the zebu, they call it the Maasai zebu, because there's different, again, how they've been bred. But the Maasai zebu has a much higher fat content and a little bit lower in terms of the lactose and the carb that it contains, but it still has a good amount. And so when people are talking about that they're low carb, they do get quite a bit of carbs from the dairy, because that's really what they really consume, a lot of milk. So we'll look at that. So I'm going to go over here. All right, so here we go. So I'm just going to go back. So we did kind of cover this one, but I just want to kind of just get us started back on track. So the Maasai. So what we did is, what I did is I was with two Maasai tribes, two different ones. The first Maasai is I spent the most with, because that was Mateo, who was my lead guide and my translator, and now he's like my son. And this is the family we stayed with. And so in their boma, now the boma, you'll hear me talking about that often, is where the region where their home is, but it's also the region because their livestock is everything. It's their life. It's what keeps them alive. And so their livestock is also within that home. And sometimes they're even living in the home. It's not like how we think, well, we could have a pet dog or a cat, but they could be chickens and sheep and goats and the babies right in your home with you. And at first I kind of thought, well, how can that work? But now it makes sense. They protect them. And we think about, oh, what about the fleas, the bugs? It's just, you don't think about that. And they're just so healthy. You don't see that kind of thing on the animals. It was just remarkable. And I want to talk about that in terms of what they feed the animals too, because that's so profound. I think we're being so misled about what our animals have to be fed. And it includes even salt. That's a huge piece to me. I just think that we're just being misled by so much information that people don't know what they're talking about. I watched it, and the Maasai have been doing this for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, and they know it. They know their animals. So that's really a profound thing to talk about today as well. But anyway, so a typical day in Maasai now, and this is another important thing because I research all the time. And I really think a big piece to what we're seeing is that when we even go back to like man and his studies and so forth, it depends on the tribe that you're studying. Even though you could say I'm living with a Maasai, they're all different. And I realized that. So when I was looking at the Datogas, there was a pastoralist, and then there was the blacksmith. And I was just assuming, because everything I read online said that they live very much like the Maasai. So I'm thinking that the blacksmiths are also going to be living very much like the Maasai in terms of milk, meat, and blood. But we get there, and they're almost vegan. And it made sense because as the boys, well, they're boys to me, but they're in their 30s. They're like the age of my children. And I said, well, what do you eat? Thinking they're gonna say blood, milk, and meat, and they're like, no. They said, no, we eat ugali, and they're talking about their diet. And I said, well, what about meat? And they said, well, we don't really have a lot because we're working all day long, making jewelry and arrows and axe heads and everything with metal. They said, we can't tend to livestock. And I was like, oh my golly, that makes sense. And I said, well, I saw some goats out here. And he said, well, we just have that. And he said, in case maybe once a month, we might slaughter one and have a little bit of meat. And I said, what about milk? And he's like, not much. And I was
Which tribe is this again?
This was the Datoga, but the blacksmiths. Yeah. And then we went and lived with the pastoralists. They lived just exactly like the Maasai, blood, milk, and meat. Although, again, the Ugali is coming in. But it was amazing, David, to think that, and that's the aha moment. So I'm like, wait. And that's why I really want to make sure I'm going to different tribes, even on the same, to go to a couple Datoga, a couple Maasai. I wanted to see, are they all the same? But they're not. They're not at all. And we'll talk about this even with the Maasai. So let's go to the Maasai diet now. So we need to think about when we're reading research, if they're only focusing on the group, then they're assuming that all of the Maasai live like this, and all the Maasai blood work and lab work is going to come out the same. But if you're living with a Maasai who's now incorporating Ugali, or who maybe was living near a tribe like the Sonjo, who grow a lot of crops, and they started eating more of the plant-based and putting that into the diet, you're going to have a different kind of a Maasai tribe. And if you're basing all of your research on that given tribe, is it accurate? And this is what I'm starting to notice, because I'm really looking at that now. I'm going back and looking at all the research I've been reading for 40 years, 40, 50 years. And now I'm like, wait, but they're saying that this tribe was eating this, but my Maasai tribes don't. My Maasai tribes aren't eating all of this. Because people are saying, oh, but the women, they were going and doing this, and they were going and getting the sweet potatoes, and they were going and getting this. So they really were eating all of these. Not my Maasai people. They're so strict to what the Maasai, and so I think that's a big thing we need to look at when you're looking at research, is what tribes were they actually talking with? And the same thing with Hadzabe. There are some Hadzabe that maybe are eating more plants, and there's others Hadzabe that aren't. They're more meat-based. They're really trying to do more hunting if they've got their land and it hasn't been taken away by the government, and they're not sharing it with pastoralists. They're scaring away the animals. There's so many factors to this. Once you've been living it and you've been going there, it changes how you interpret all the data and how you look at how someone did their research. And we need to think about that when we're looking at these things. It's something that people haven't been talking about. And the Maasai I lived with were not a lot of plant-based. There was not a lot of Ugali going on in these tribes. They were totally based on their milk, their meat, and blood is there, but not like as much as it used to be. Not as much as it used to be. Whenever they slaughter, they'll have but they're not doing the jugular where they're mixing it a lot with their milk. That might happen more in the summertime when it's dry out and the cattle are not able to produce as much milk because they're not getting enough grazing because it's all been taken away. And so that's when they add the blood to it. It's not a daily thing. The blood would be added when they want to help to multiply the supply of milk. And that's when they do it. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's never been talked about. I just thought that they were always doing it every day just because it was the thing to do. And they said, oh no, usually the tribes I live with, how they perceive the use of blood is, yes, whenever they slaughter, it's a big piece, we're over there drinking out of the bowl and stuff, right as it's coming out. But they also add it to their soups and they stir it in their meats and things. But they're not drinking every day with their milk. It's usually done in the summer when the milk supply is low, and it helps them to 50-50. It's like a 50-50 ratio, and it makes a larger supply of liquid to drink and nutrients. And that made sense. But even now, because their cattle are dying off because the land has been taken from them, and Dave, that's something I wish so badly we could do. And you've introduced me to some new guys on Twitter that we're all kind of coming together, and we're trying to put our heads together, about how can we raise money to help, because these are our future. I mean, they're teaching us, if we lose these tribes, we're not going to know how humans lived. How do we thrive? What do we do? And what I've learned just in the time of being with the tribes in the Pacific Island and the tribes in Tanzania, Africa, I can't believe what I've learned from them. The wisdom, and it's not just about diet. It's about so many facets that, to me, and even the elders who had said the same thing, what makes a healthy person. And if you're missing all of these different pillars, and they've talked about in the Blue Zone, it's exactly what I saw. Exactly. It's so different. We can talk about that, but let me focus. I was kind of digressing. Let's go back to this and we can get back to the other pillars later if you'd like. So on the Maasai, a typical day now is, because, their land is so minimal and they don't have the massive amounts of livestock they did back in the day. It would be, during a week, it's mostly milk. They live mostly on milk. It's like a liquid diet, and it's profound to see them. So the women might drink maybe 4 to 5 liters of milk a day, and the men 6-7 liters a day. And then maybe 2 to 3 times. When I was there,
how are they doing that?
in the morning, they only eat twice a day. So, and they're not snacking. They don't snack. So all this snacking, everything, we got to think about, guys, it's not, unless the only time they're going to snack, again, when you're doing it, is if you're out walking, or like when the day we were out, there's pictures I'll show you. The day we were out going to spend days with the girls and see what the girls were going to be doing. And we were out walking, and we had to walk and walk and walk to go to get chopped wood for the fires. And it was the season for the wild plum, which looks, and we talked about this, it looks like a cherry tomato, and it's it's this Maasai's favorite, and it was the season. And so we snacked. We did stop and we had some. I mean, we're not eating tons and tons of it, but we're, and Mateo, she's like, oh my gosh, I just love this. It's so good. And it was that's the one that's very sour and bitter. It's like, oh, golly. But anyway, so that would be like a snack. If you have it and you run across a bush that has some kind of fruit on it, you'll snack. And that's what they do. And that's natural. That's in nature. But they're not snacking all day long. Like people, I'm going to bring this bag of chips with me, or, I got to have this, this kind of stick with me, or whatever it is, granola bar. It's not natural. We don't do that. It's what's found in nature. And that's what we have to think. Would it be with us? They don't always have the supply of food with them. It's not normal. It's not natural. And so normally the morning they get up very, very early because they've got to tend to the livestock. And so as the sun is coming up, you get up, and no alarm clock.
And they're milking the zebu cattle, or they're milking other animals too?
They've got the sheep, they've got the goats, and they've got the cows.
And
They've
they
all
milk
got
it all in the same pot, or do they like separate the milks for different
it just
purposes?
when I'm there, when I'm with them, they've got their calabash, which I showed on the other video, and they'll milk into that calabash, and then and they just they're just milking as they go along, and
So what I'm saying is they mix the sheep milk and the goat milk and the cow milk all together.
I did see like in the Iraq tribe, I did see them do a little bit of because I think I was kind of asking for the fresh because they were boiling, and I just said, could I just have raw? And so then I think that's
You said I don't like pasteurized milk.
I just said I don't like it boiled. Because again, the Iraq have been scared by the government. It's making them fear the raw milk because of bacteria can be in it. And so now they've gone to boiling, and of course they're watching me and they're saying, oh no, I want to have the raw. And they've got, the Maasai with me. They're all saying, yeah, we'll take the raw, so they were going out and they were milk because everything they had was already boiled. So they went out and just quickly milked,
They're not considered a member of the Maasai, though. They're a distinct tribe.
No, the Iraq is a different sector of a different tribe. But they're more agro-pastoralists. We talked about them the last time. They're agro-pastoralists. So they grow crops, mostly corn, and because they do ugali. And that's where a lot of people in the tribes now are getting their ugali. They're going to the Iraq tribe.
Is there a long history of raising corn in that region for thousands of years or hundreds of years that we know
Some
of?
tribes have, but it's very new to many of the tribes to add this. And this is why if anyone's who's new to hearing me speak, if you go on to my Instagram, you go back to February and you'll see live chats and you'll hear every single elder talking about the tribes I'm living with, because it's new to them, that once they added ugali in, they started seeing decline. Now, this is another thing that you and I talk a lot about, Dave, when we're not on camera. The big thing we need to start thinking about is I'm not cutting down on grains, because there are many cultures who have succeeded extremely successfully eating grains. But there's a difference. Okay. And I'm really finding this because I'm looking at my own polymorphisms, and I've got quite a few of them, which impacts what my body can handle. And so people have been asking me, but wait, but Ugali's been, like in India, I mean, absolutely. But India, they've been eating ugali for, oh my goodness, hundreds and hundreds of years. Many places have been eating grains, but are the grains the same that we have? No. If you got acorn, that's an heirloom.
Mm-hmm.
If it hasn't been processed and it hasn't gotten glyphosate sprayed all over, and it's what it traditionally was made. Mm-hmm. That's gonna be a whole different ball game, a quality that many people maybe have success on. But corn is so tainted now. Now I've asked the Iraq who are growing theirs. I said, is this an heirloom corn that has not been tainted? Again, the translation, I don't know if they were understanding what Mateo was translating. And it looked like they're saying it's what they've always had. It's not the new, but they did confirm to me that the government is trying to get them to stop growing their heirloom corn and grow their, high yield, contaminated, GMO, genetically modified corn. And I keep
because the government's probably getting grants and money from these big multinational corporations.
Yeah. And I just said, please stick with what you've been doing. Don't change. And they said that they won't. But again, going back to the grains, and so I'm not saying ugali is terrible for everyone. But what if these tribes are like me? I have celiac disease. I'm Irish, and when you go back in my history, and this is what we all need to do. I'm hoping that one day I can create an app that people can go on and they can, if you've done your like 23andMe or Ancestry, and you've got what your genetic polymorphisms are that are going to impact you, or what your history of, I'm French, Irish, and Native American. So I can go back and I know I can pinpoint exactly through Ancestral or 23andMe, and I can tell exactly the region where I was from, or my ancestors were from. And when I go back and look, there was no grains. There was nothing. The only thing that the Irish were eating, thousands of years ago was oats. And doesn't have the gluten, although it does have some. I can't even eat oats. It causes problems for me. But that's what they're eating. And once their diet changed and they started adding in wheat and the ones that have the gluten, the damaging gluten, so they say, that's where their health started falling. And that's where many people who have this Irish DNA are the celiacs. And it makes sense. So that's my whole point. My father had hypercholesterolemia. And I've got one of the genes. But I tested it again, knowing I had one of them to make sure, because sometimes just having one will give you it. And they said, no, I don't have it. Thank goodness. But what if that's the one that if you have this gene that if you have the double, especially the double, that your cholesterol is off the chart. And my father at 50 started having massive strokes and mini strokes all the time. And it's, and I know a lot of people are saying that cholesterol and saturated fat, and this is another thing, I feel like we're really getting off target, but this is so important because my research is really making me question what we're saying. And I think we need to be really cautious about this. And when we're saying, especially in the carnivore community, that we should not fear cholesterol, we should not fear saturated fat. But what if, I'm just throwing this out there as a researcher, because everything we do is speculation. And especially when we're talking individual people and individual DNA. What if, and this has been shown in actual autopsies on Maasai, on their hearts, 50 of them, that was done, I believe, in 1960. And you can go back and look at these. And I read them over and over to make sure, am I missing something here? Is there something I don't understand? But when they're looking at the arteries of these men who live a very high saturated fat diet, their arteries were clogging. There was plaque buildup. The only difference was they were wider, which allowed there wasn't blockage like in a typical American who's sedentary and isn't moving. And they said, well, why would theirs be wider and larger, allowing there to be good blood flow? There's not going to be heart disease, but there was plaque buildup, and quite a bit. But because they had the wider arteries and the blood was able to flow smoothly through it, they don't have heart disease, but they do have buildup. And that's my point. So if we're telling, and I see people doing this in the carnivore community, and it's frightening to say this to anyone, especially if you're eating a high fat, high saturated, high cholesterol diet, to say, but you don't need to exercise. You're just going to lose weight. You're just going to become buff, all this. You have to move constantly, because that's what's going to, this is according to research, they believe.
But how do people, I mean, if we're going to, I know what you're saying. I agree with that people have to move, but most people don't have financial freedom. I mean, they're enslaved to.
And this is the point. So and I think, David, that perhaps
they've got a mortgage, they've got a car payment, they've got student loans.
That's why
they're sitting on the desk.
Why I'm afraid down the road we're going to find this, and it's going to be too late for all these people who are jumping on this bandwagon. And I eat a lot of meat.
Yeah,
I'm drinking now, massive, heavy. I mean, sheep milk is like, it's almost it's like one of the highest fat contents you can get in an animal milk. And I only drink 16 ounces a day, but still the amount of fat that is in that is huge. And the cholesterol and all these things. I'm not trying to put fear monger. I am not fear mongering. I just want us to think, because I'm still doing this. I'm still eating this way, but I'm also very active. And my fear is that if you are not an active person and you can't be active and you're consuming this kind, I just want everyone to think about this. If you are, what if we're getting that buildup just like the Maasai, but we don't have that wide artery that's going to allow the blood to pass through?
Yeah.
And our small arteries that have not been expanded through 12, 15 miles of walking and lifting all day long. What if ours are small and our arteries are blocking like the Maasai?
Yeah.
Now we don't have the opening, the space that they did.
I thought the general new paradigm that people are exploring is that the plaque buildup in the arteries is not just because you're eating too much cholesterol, but rather that is being used to repair bacterial or other inflammatory infections and so forth in the arterial system you have because of stress and other things that's creating these. And so that just means that maybe what if I'm saying, what if the Maasai are in those 50 people that they did the autopsies on, what if they just had a high stress? Maybe there were, what if there was like famines or, and that was causing stress, inflammation, and then the cholesterol they were eating was just repairing it. You know what I mean?
And that's, but yeah, when we compare it, they compare that with men, the 60-year-old men in the United States, and they all had the same buildup.
Yeah.
I don't, and again, no one knows. We're all speculating.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I adore Sean Baker. I mean, to me, he really looks at things as well. And he even says this because he knows the same thing. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
We don't know. And so he's trying to let people know
Yeah.
that we know that this makes us feel great. I mean, look at me. I mean, I was dying, and now I'm alive. I have white blood cells now. I have red blood cells. I have platelets, which I didn't have.
You did carnivore, right?
I did vegan, and I went to carnivore, but it didn't work for me. But I'm still a high animal based diet. But I love how he always says that. He's very, very conscientious and always saying, but we don't know.
Right.
And so you're making this decision. We're all making a decision on our own. But as a researcher, I'm just saying for myself and for my children, my family who have my DNA and all of these things, I want to make sure, because I watched what my father went through.
Yeah.
And he was a meat eater. He was more Native American than I am. It was meat with little, you know what I mean? But he also did eat processed food as well. But I mean, he had hypocholesterolemia, and it was just it was awful.
I agree with you that I agree with your hypothesis that perhaps we need to really, or your speculation that we need to be very cautious about telling people to eat, to be extremely sedentary while doing a keto or carnivore diet. But I would just say that at the same time, it may that's a given that people should be active. Yes. But number two, I'm just speculating out loud that what if those 50 people in that autopsy were just that the plaque was healing inflammation in their system that was caused by another environmental factor. So the plaque that was built up in the 60-year-old American man at the same age was caused by those stressors that our environment had, and the plaque buildup in the Maasai older men or whatever that was studied in there was an example of stressors, just a different type.
Possibly.
So that's all I'm asking.
And these are all great. We have to think of these things. But then on the other hand, they're always saying that the Maasai are like the least stressed. They think that's one of their pillars. There's different things that we have to look at also with the Maasai, in terms of which I'll be coming out with, and maybe that'll be another. Because the plants that they eat, well, they don't really eat the plants. They utilize the plants in their soups. And the research that I'm finding, and it's not even just the Maasai. So when I look at all of these cultures who have the centenarians, who have these profound extended lives and robust lives, they all have the same, very similar kinds of plants that they're utilizing. And wait till you see when I bring my slides out. I don't know if you want to do that in another talk. It's profound.
Let's see it.
Slides. Well, I don't have them. It's a whole different program I've got. But the slides are profound to show you the plants and the different, like the Japanese and the Ayurvedics and these cultures have for thousands of years have been using plants that they make their teas and things out of.
Can you give an example of a plant that the Okinawans have that the
I can't even pronounce their plants, but there's certain plants that they believe, and I think there's something to this, because it's the same thing. The Maasai is this, and this has been proven in research that these plants have polyphenols and these saponins and so forth in them that they almost can cleanse your arteries. They flush out the arteries. And if we're not using them, and so this is another of there's so many things I want to talk about. So first there's movement. Movement helps to keep our arteries open. okay, and enlarges them so that there's more space. So if there is any kind of blockage happening, we won't. That's one thing. Two, and I really want to get these plants out there to talk to people about these things, because we can kind of have something similar. Many of the plants that vegans are eating have these polyphenols and these saponins in them. They actually have the ability, according to the research I'm looking at, to help us to how we're processing saturated fat and cholesterol, but also to actually like clean and carry the cholesterols and so forth out of our arteries. And so when you think of like even like the men, the people in Greece who have their teas, the green teas and so forth, those have those saponins and polyphenols. And when you start looking at these, I'm like, oh my golly. I mean, I've been researching this, but I never researched it to look at what else they can do. And in this, the belief, and the Maasai taught me this, because I kept asking them, they were so adamant. And I knew it before I went because I'd been studying it. I said, there's something about this bark, the bark in these trees, the acacia. There's different kinds of acacia. And again, this is my go-to book.
Yeah.
So Mateo and I bought him one too. So I'm always texting him, honey, look at this plant. Is this one of the ones?
Can you go to full screen so we can see the book? Yeah.
Okay. So this is the book that Mateo and I, and so I'm
Trees and Shrubs of East Africa.
East Africa. But there's books for every region, which I probably will end up with a huge library because I'm going to be going to so when I go to Okinawa, and maybe Dave, you're going with me, we're talking.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll have a book from with theirs. When I get there, I'll find out what their Holy Bible type book is for plants.
Yeah.
And then to study and research their plants as well, because there's something to this. They're really, so when especially in the carnivore world, when we're saying plants are trying to kill you, and I asked every single tribe I've been with, are plants trying to kill us? And they were shocked that anyone would say that. Yes, we know there are some plants that they're poisonous. We know that you can't eat some plants. You know, I can't even look hardly at a poison ivy and I get poison ivy. But anyway, and I know that some plants I can't eat. I have allergies to them. But right now I'm putting back in sweet potatoes, because in everywhere I've gone, the sweet potato is like prized as the ultimate plant in terms of tubers. And in very much like with the Hadzabi, their tubers are sweet potato. And they just said that oh my gosh, you know, we can't imagine not having these tubers. And I'm finding now, since I'm putting them back in with the dairy, we talked about this before, it's a big difference. But let's go back to the plants. So it's not that they're eating the plants. They're taking them and they're boiling them, like making a tea or making their soups. And that extrapolates, it extracts the nutrients of these polyphenols and saponins that are healing to our bodies. And this is something I really want to be talking about, that we have to start thinking. So is it going to, and I'm hoping that I'm right on what I'm saying, that if this is correct, then maybe in the carnivore world, they may have to start adding in, doesn't mean you have to eat them, but specific teas, which I'm going to come out with, that are proving that they have this almost like a medicinal ability, as the Maasai swear by, and the cultures in Japan and China and these, you know, India, they all have them. Every of these wise cultures, they've got this in all of them. I've gone through all of them, and they all have the same thing, and they say the same thing in research. They believe, and I believe it is, because they're extremely pristine in terms of their elders. So I think we need to look at that in terms of, is this another reason for longevity with these tribes, is they understand the plants, and they were adamant. Again, look at the live chats, the Hadzabi, all of them, they were saying, oh my goodness.
So it may not be that saturated fat is a villain. It's just that it needs to be accompanied with certain other foods.
It's a villain if it doesn't have the other
accompaniments.
Because I mean, the Maasai, when you talk to them, oh my gosh, you have to have this, even in their chai tea every morning. That bark, the acacia, and there's different acacias, there's different ones that they use, that has to be in that chai soup and the chai milk.
Well, even like, I wonder, like the molecular compounds in these barks, because I know that like aspirin comes from, what is it, white willow bark or whatever?
Yeah, I believe
They make
so.
salicylic acid, and I wonder if there's similar compounds there
And that's what it is. And it's
because
really,
someone like again, I always reference him because he's a free thinker, and it's where you can kind of play with the real avant-garde people. And I don't get into his tribe the way it becomes. He didn't make a tribe, he was just a free thinker. But Ray Peat talks
yeah,
about salicylic acid, and he talks about aspirin a lot. And I wonder, he was pro saturated fat, pro, eating, liver, milk,
yes,
fruit juice.
yes.
Those are basically the foundations of his paradigm of what he's looked at. Gelatin, lots of gelatin, which is going to be probably what the Maasai are eating, right? I imagine they're not getting separated cuts of meat without the connective tissues,
That's
right?
it. And they're in the bone marrow. And you should see them. I mean, the connective tissue is huge to them. They
Yeah.
eat bones.
Yeah.
They're trying to, and I'm trying to do the same now that I'm home. I'm trying to really get through all the bones and everything. They're getting everything. They're getting everything out of that animal.
Yeah.
But it's powerful, David. And
but the big paradigm is so many folks are trying to lose weight. And I wonder, this is the big $1 trillion question, which is, what is the healthiest way to heal from overweight caused by all of the Western diet and environment without wrecking your metabolism and your stress hormones worse in the process? That's the $1 trillion question, because I don't know if a lot of folks could eat like the Maasai, right, to get the 4,000, 5,000 calories. If they just had everything, if you could, if they had a ship, those crates that you buy these companies, and they pack your box full of everything you need for the month.
Yeah.
If the Maasai did that, they'd make, they could probably make billions of dollars for their tribe, actually.
We were laughing about those things.
You just open up the box and it's a goat leg, just with the fur on, eat.
But it's possible. But we can do this.
Yeah.
And so many of my clients say, but Susan, this is so expensive, and
Yeah.
it can be. But I think first of all, the worst thing that we're doing is the fear mongering.
Yeah.
And that is so deadly. That is to see the fear in the people that come to me every day.
Yeah.
They're afraid to eat anything. I'm afraid to eat plant. I'm afraid to eat meat. I'm afraid to eat anything because everything's
like
bad for us. And
it's a Western disease.
Yes. The stress that's adding to people is worse than anything. Worse than anything. So I think the thing is, again, for me, what I'm doing for myself, and I've been doing this forever. This is the only body that God has given me. It's my temple. And I want to do the best I can to take care of it, because God doesn't make mistakes. We aren't designed to age and be old and in pain and suffering pain. And, the women are being told, why do I have period cramps? Why do I go through menopause? It's so awful. I didn't have period cramps. I did. Menopause was a piece of cake for me. I didn't have mood swings. I had a little bit of hot flashes here and there, but hardly nothing. I was excited about it because freedom fast, wow, I'm in this new phase, and it was just beautiful. And it should be that way, because that's God does it. Again, he doesn't make mistakes. So for women, we shouldn't be feeling all of these, the emotions and the PMS, as they call it. They even give it a name now, the PMS. Because we have to go through these mood swings. No, that's not normal. That is not normal. And if you're having these up and downs and all these fluctuations, and people are having depression, suicide, that doesn't exist. It does not exist in the tribes.
And it's not, and there's 5,000, you got if they're eating 5,000 calories a day, that's double what the average American, even the ones eating the junk food, are eating.
Yeah.
Because even if you're eating KFC and McDonald's, you're still not getting usually anywhere close to what I don't even know what is the number, but it's not like probably beyond much 3,000, right? It's probably
I wouldn't think so. No.
Yeah. So the average Americans they're eating half the calories. They're going to these artificial blue light gyms.
Yes.
And it's not, we don't want to disparage people, because this is extremely difficult, because there are people who have careers who are stuck in a job where they're sitting 9 to 5. Like, I'm blessed to be able to work for myself and do these things. But, there's a lot of folks who have to go to office every day and do these things, and they don't have any backup plan to pay off their mortgage, to keep up with inflation, but to keep that, debilitating job. And so we can't be shaming people if they go to the gym.
No.
And I'm just saying that out loud, but at the same time, But at the same time, we don't want to be condemned. We don't want to have this artificial, like, that's something I really, because I think God does not want us to, I think there's a time to fast and all these things, but there's a time for it. I think the normal human experience, I mean, Brad Marshall has shown, he looked at the USDA statistics that I think 1940s average individual in America was eating 4,000 to 5,000 calories a day. So that's just like the Maasai.
Yes.
And that's just like what Ray Peat said. He said in the 1950s, I calculated how much I was eating. It was 5,000 calories a day. And they're not doing back-breaking deadlifts. They're walking. Ray Peat was just walking and planting trees.
And the Maasai, that's what the guy told me. When I talked about what I do to work out, they're like, but why? Yeah. Why? That's not normal. That's not normal. Who does that? You get it in your daily work that you're doing. But again, most of us aren't pastoralists.
What's the heaviest? What do you think is the heaviest, like, weights that they lift?
The men, I'm being honest, the men don't do a lot of lifting. It's the women who do all the lifting. Like
the cow carcass? I'm just like imagining.
The cow, but yeah, and that's very rare. Very rarely do they lift a cow. And if they're going to do a cow, that's usually for a ceremony, which is, rarely. And so, but they'll be doing a sheep, a lamb, a goat, and they're probably 50, 60 pounds at most. And they, they pick them up and put them over their shoulders and things. And so that would be what they would be doing, but it's not on a daily basis now. But the women are the ones that are lifting, 150 pounds of wood on their back and carrying all the water and so forth. So they're doing most of the lifting, but the men, and the women are doing walking too, because they've got to walk miles and miles to get water and miles to go get their wood. So they're doing miles. The children walk miles, even on the contemporary now, because the children go to school, but most of their schools are like 8, 9, 10 miles away. And so they've got to get up a few hours early to walk to their school. And then at the end of the day, they walk home. And so the children are very...
Is that devastating for the family economy that needs to have them working on the pastoral?
It is. It is. Because,
so why do they go along with that? Is it mandatory?
Yeah, I mean, the government is saying that they want them to go.
Is it mandatory? Like, do they have truant officers or whatever?
No, because there are children who don't go. And like when I was with the Datoga tribe, the children said that they really don't want to go because they get beaten. They're being flogged.
At the school?
At the schools.
Man, what's up with that?
I was just
like, why are schools
oh,
always so violent no matter where you go? I was like, oh my
gosh. I said, are you kidding me? And they go, we don't want to go. They said, we got to be with our animals. We don't want to go to school.
Who's the teachers at the school? Is it Maasai or other people?
No, they're other people, because these are not private. There are some private schools, but these are schools brought by the state, their country. Okay. You know what I mean? And so they've got.
So does their country kind of view them like a strange sect, like the Amish or something? Like, we got to make sure you guys go to school now. Come on over here, little Amish kid.
You have to wear. It's kind of like a parochial school. You have to wear a uniform.
Yeah.
We don't want any other tribes to know what tribe you're from, because that could cause conflict. And you have to take a bath. You cannot be dirty like a savage. And I'm like, that's awful to tell them, because to me they look so clean. And even though they aren't taking baths and showers, they don't have that. They look so clean every day. Even the children who don't go to school, they're so well kept looking. They're not filthy looking. And I talked to the chief of the Maasai about this, and I just said, how awful that they're made to feel that they're being in their tribe is something wrong with that.
Yeah.
And I said, what I wouldn't give to be able to start schools that are like little one-room schoolhouses in each of their little areas that have Maasai teachers, or have Iraq teachers, or Hadzabi, if this is what they want, because we don't want to change them. But even the guys who are the warriors in the 15 to 30-year-old, so at 15, you go into the warrior stage, and this is where they can do something really funky with their hair. But you cannot go to school. You are not allowed to go to school if you're going to do that. So a lot of the boys that want to live that warrior period are not going to school. Yeah. And so like Mateo, who was a warrior, he wanted to go to school, so he couldn't do all that stuff with his hair. He had to shave his, be very clean and well cut. So he missed that portion of, which is an important piece of being a Maasai. But why would they take that away? Because I mean, I've got a video that I'll be showing soon on my Instagram of one of the warriors actually talking, because a lot of them won't talk to you, especially a woman. It's like, oh, but this one was so awesome when he was angry with me at first. But then he started realizing, oh, she's good. And so he talked to me, and I knew he wasn't going to school because he had all the hair, but he was so smart. And I thought, what a travesty.
Mm-hmm.
This boy isn't allowed to go to school because he wants us to live that warrior period. And I talked to the chief about that, and I said, why can't we have schools for all the tribes to allow them to be proud of who they are and to go to school as they are and not be judged and not be flogged, you know? And he was like, oh my gosh, can you imagine what that would be?
Yeah.
You know, and the children would want to go. They wouldn't be in fear of being flogged every day and just belittled for who they are. And so these are just things I think about, but I know I feel like we keep getting off on the target here, but going back to the plants, I really think that there's a piece to this. And when I start coming out with the information I'm going to show you down the pike, I think that it's another pillar as to, and this is one of the things with the Maasai. So we know that they are building up plaque, but they don't have heart disease because they're active. And it's not like they're sprinting. They are not sprinting and running. They're not at the gym. They're not doing hits, all these, 10-minute fasting, sprinting. They're just walking, but they walk a lot. And so as you said, but what can the average person do? As I tell my daughters, because they work all the time, I said, just walk as much as you can. On your lunch hour, get outside, walk, get together with the people at your business or your place of work and just say, what can we do to incorporate more movement in our day? Instead of taking an elevator, take the stairs. Walk. I mean, I've got right here, I've got weights and things up here. Even though I don't go to a gym. I have everything here because to me it's a waste of time. I just have everything in my house. So this is what I do. So like every hour, because I'm researching a lot, I get up and I do I do things. I'll go for power walks. I've got, weights and things I put on myself. I live on a hill, so I run and run the hill. But that's because but when I was teaching, I ran to school every day instead of driving. I ran home. I was always doing things with my children. As a teacher, if you're a teacher listening, I would actually get my children up every hour. And we would do jumping jacks, we'd dance, we'd skip, we'd do whatever we could. I'd take them outside to get sunlight so we could run and play and just do cartwheels out there. And we just anything to move and to be human. We can, there really shouldn't be any excuse. And if you really are serious, and if we can get our world to understand the importance of movement and what we do every day and what we think and what we see and who we associate with, these are all pieces to the puzzle. And that's what the Maasai, that's how they live. And so it's not just diet, there's all different pieces to this. So if we can just teach everyone that even in our workspace, be that person that comes out and says, let's make this a healthier place. And let's make it a place where we can move, we can get outside, have our meetings outside. If it's a nice day, let's go out and have our meetings outside. Drop a squat, get everyone to start squatting more, because that's one of the biggest pieces to being human. If you can't squat, and just say to yourself, can I squat? You have to
the Japanese squat, you have to do that
all the time. Yeah. You look at all the big cultures in India, everyone's squatting because that's part of, you have to go to the bathroom. That's what they do, and that's how they eat. And so the fact is, if we aren't squatting, how fabulous would it be to see a bunch of board members of a big corporation going outside and squatting to have their meeting? And I know this sounds like, oh, she's so weird, and this is so fanatical, but it's not. This is ancestral. This is how humans are designed to live.
Yeah.
And if we've taken this piece out, and I just feel like even with my computer, I have a squat. I made myself a squatting bench so that I can sit here. I can squat instead of sit. I don't use chairs. That's just for, again, people who come here that can't squat. They'll sit there, but even when I have people here, I'll still squat, and I'll say, I'm with you, but I'm just squatting on the floor. I don't like to sit. I prefer to squat. And so
what about laying? Is laying bad? Or, like Jesus would recline at table. That's like where they lay. It's the ground thing.
Anything different than sitting, because we are just sitting all day, and it's just not normal. It's just altering how we're looking.
What do you do during the airplane rides that you do? These long
oh my gosh, people think I'm nuts.
But you start cartwheeling. Are you cartwheeling down the aisles all day?
I'll just say, but people will know, because when I get on a plane, and, because I'm usually carrying all my luggage, and people can see me going through through the airport. I'm doing my, with all my luggage, I'm doing my curls, or I'm doing, I'm doing whatever I'm doing, or I'm sprinting, I'm, I'll, whatever. But when I'm on the airplane, so if I have like a 16-hour flight, that's tough for me to sit like that. I can't.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lose my mind. And so I'll just say the stewardess, the flight attendants, I'll just say, do you mind if I, and so I'll get up and I'll do on the ground, I'll do push-ups in the aisle. I'll do you do the squats and things.
Yeah.
I'll do stretching my legs. I'll do yoga things. I'll do push-ups, reverse push-ups on my chair on the side in the aisle. So I'm doing anything I can to move, or I'll just walk up and down, up and down, up and down. And people will actually start getting up and start following and start walking with me.
Wow.
So we're role models, guys. We can exemplify, we can be that example to people and to children, what it means to take care of our temple. It's what a gift it is, and to make an excuse, there's no excuse. There is no excuse. I have found no matter where I go, I will do whatever it takes to maintain what I know makes me feel my best. This is my medicine, and it doesn't cost me a dime, but it's an effort. And once you start doing it and you start going outside and getting out from being the comfort of our little cage here, like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful out. Once you get out there and you get moving, it's like, this is really beautiful. I feel so good. So if we can incorporate this in our classrooms with our children and in our businesses, whatever we're doing, when I go shopping, I park so far away. I park as far away as I can so I can go in, and I don't get a cart. I carry bags, and I put everything in my bags. So I'm always working out as I'm walking along and shopping. And then, at the end, I've got all my bags, and I'm working out on my long walk back. Anything I can do to move to help me to maintain youth.
Are you walking barefoot into those?
I have barefoot
parking
shoes.
lots.
I have barefoot shoes. I've tried, but they will stop you. And I understand that. But I have barefoot shoes. And I have shoes I actually have custom made, that are very similar. I should bring them up, but they're down in the basement. That are similar to what the tribes would have worn. It's just a piece of thin leather, and then it's got thin leather strings that just tie around. It's almost looks like something Jesus would wear, and I wear those, and it's just, it's so beautiful. But I've got every shoe I wear, unless I'm going to a really fancy function where I
Does the Maasai have any type of shoes like that?
No, and I've got a video that shows they did in the past, but now, and I talked to Hadzabi as well, and the chief of the Hadzabi actually talked about why they no longer are wearing the thin little piece of leather that they used to wear, because they said that when it gets wet, they're very slippery and they just aren't practical. And of course, in Africa, and I was wearing very thin barefoot shoes, there's thorns everywhere, not just on trees, but they're on the ground. I mean, everywhere I was going, my hair was like getting stuck in trees, but on the ground, huge thorns that were going through my shoes. And they said it was impacting. And they found that, so now what the Maasai do is they take tires, brand new tires, and they cut them. And again, this is on the videos, and Mateo shows his shoes, and that's the bottom of their shoe is now this piece of tire that they use, and then they've got their beadwork and their hides that help to tie on and make it stay on their foot. And that's what they're using now, because they said so they can get wet and they aren't going to slip, and they don't have to worry about the thorns anymore. So they have modernized their footwear. They really have modernized it. But I didn't say anything, because I'm not trying to change anyone. My only fear about that is, because I studied the feet and our feet are so important to our health, is that they aren't feeling the ground anymore, and it's rubber. So they're getting all the toxins out of the rubber that's going into their feet when they're sweating. These are just things I'm like, but I don't want to, I don't want to keep thinking I'm trying to fearmonger the tribes either.
Yeah.
But for me, I wouldn't wear that, because I have to move my feet. And you'll see even over here, I don't know if you can see it, there's stones, this mat here. And so I walk on that barefoot, and it gives my feet, I've got videos on this as well, it helps my feet to be able to feel things and to move things, and to all the tendons and all the joints and all the bones. It makes them move what we're supposed to do. And now with the tribes, they're wearing these plastic, these rubber shoes and things. Their feet aren't moving anymore, hardly at all. And so I'm just like, oh, fiddlesticks. They're kind of, that modernization is coming into now their feet, because movement is, and they're not grounding anymore. But you can't ground too much in Africa because these thorns are everywhere. But I did notice that, like in the tribe.
So you wore shoes while you were over there, or no?
Yes, I wore barefoot shoes, very, very thin.
So how did you navigate all the thorns?
They were going into my feet. They were
so every night you'd have to pick them out or whatever?
No, I had to stop to pull, because they're literally, these are huge thorns and they're going right into my, and we had to stop and pull them out. I think, oh my gosh, am I bleeding inside? I'm bleeding. But it was just, I wasn't going to change. I mean, this is who I am. And, and Mateo was concerned. He's like, Suze, I don't know. Those shoes are not, I don't think they're going to work. He said, it's going to be brutal out there. I said, honey, I'm going to live ancestral. I said, you used to walk like this. And I said, I'm not, I'm going to just.
I think it's funny, your stories where they want soda pop and you're saying that you're too ancestral for that. And they want you to wear nice Nike shoes and you're too ancestral for that.
They want me to wear these big, thick hike.
Next time you're going to be over there, they're going to have flying cars or something. You're going to say, my God, what happened here?
I was more ancestral than they, because they don't want to go back to having the pain.
Yeah. See, I mean, this is just me. I am not an enemy of modernity. I think there's a lot of benefits of modernity.
But for me, I'm going to be 63. You got
to be smart about what's good about modernity, right?
What works best for me. I have neuropathy, severe neuropathy in my feet. It has never come back from when I was vegan. My copper got so low, even though I was taking. And so I can't feel my feet. I cannot feel my feet. And so
that helps if you're walking barefoot a lot.
but boy, when also it goes in, because it's going through, it's like, then you feel it. It's like, oh my God, I feel that. But I do ground. I go outside.
I didn't know that vegan diets are associated with neuropathy. That's interesting.
If it's the copper. If you're, and I hear I was taking copper, doing everything right.
It has nothing to do with the PUFAs, because you weren't eating PUFAs as much, right? When you were vegan.
I've never done oils. I don't.
No, but were you eating like nuts and seeds and?
Well, I did on 50th year colonoscopy that showed that they were aligned, totally embedded everywhere, and that's when I stopped. So, and I wasn't eating a lot because I don't really like a lot of nuts and seeds, and it sounds like, I don't know, just didn't sit well with me. But even though I was taking copper and doing everything you're supposed to do, take all the right supplements, and I don't even believe in supplements, but even now, and I eat liver, I eat, raw kidney, I eat everything.
Can't get your neuropathy restored, huh? Wow.
Even my copper. And because of celiac disease, there is some research that shows, again, the polymorphism, that many celiacs have a very difficult time absorbing copper.
Interesting.
And so I'm trying so hard to do everything I possibly can to keep that copper up, but it's still low. Not like it was. I mean, not like it was the deadly point.
Is there another enzyme or other mineral that will help your uptake of copper more efficiently?
But again, for me too, is my lack of sleep, because it all deals also with melatonin and copper.
You don't sleep?
I have ADHD. I have a hyperactive disorder. You can probably tell she's always like, look I have a card that actually sits here by my computer. It says calm and slow, to be normal, and to try to be a normal person, and to not be so, it's like I'm going all the time. And so I want to take Ritalin. I don't want to take something that's going to be this awful.
Do you think that is that
that's inherited? That's
is it? See, I thought that was one of those things that they said those mood issues can be regulated when you get rid of omega-6 fats or get your ratio.
Everyone would have a lot of omega. It's, to me, and my children have different ways of it. They're not hyper like I am. They have the different version, because there's different kinds of ADHD that different come with it. I have the extremely hyperactive, because some people can cause depression. It can cause. I'm like, I've never experienced depression. I'm always very happy, but I'm extremely so much energy, and that's 24/7.
Do you have like a very high thyroid?
My metabolism is just like off the chart. I'm just off the chart. But again, it's a polymorph. I was born with this. I was born, even if you look at the videos of me as a little girl, it's like, oh, what is up
You
with
were
this?
doing push-ups on the airplane back then? Yeah.
Literally every video, the rest of the family's just kind of sitting there, and I'm literally just like dancing and singing. And I couldn't, I didn't learn to read until I was in 6th grade.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't focus on what the teacher was saying.
Yeah.
And all these things taped onto my desk, especially like in 1st and 2nd grade. I couldn't remember shapes. I couldn't remember words. I couldn't remember the alphabet. I couldn't remember anything because I was too busy. My brain was thinking of everything else other than what anyone else was saying. And finally, I learned to read in 6th grade, Mr. Jandro. And he was amazing. He accepted me for who I was. And but also my father gave me my first book that I first read. It's called Rascal. And I had my raccoons, which are my favorite. And it was about a raccoon, a boy with his raccoon. And it was the first book that I read, and I could remember what I read, and I got through it. I can read.
Yeah.
It takes me, I have to read everything like 7 times.
Yeah.
Every page I read, I have to keep reading over and over because my brain, I can't focus on it.
I think the internet creates that in people.
And
I've noticed. I read this is crazy, but like when in 1st grade, I remember reading my first 365-page book, and now I can't focus because I'm doing so much online that when it's time to read a book, it's like I feel like I read slower, and I know I don't, but it feels like I read slower than I did when I was in grade school. And I think it's because of, like multi-tab browsing and things like that can, when you're doing multiple different lines of research and I want to read that essay, but I can't finish it. I need to go read this one, and I got to check that email and do that.
Your brain is becoming very much like an ADHD person. That I'm focusing on this, but wait, I can do this, but now I can do this. Back in the day, before we had computers, we didn't have tons and tons of books out focusing on one book. We could focus.
Yeah.
But now now you understand this is what an ADHD person thinks about. I can do this, I can do this, I've got all these things, Plus, I'm a musician, and I had music running through my head all the time.
Like instrumental music or singing?
Anything. It could be anything. Or whistling. I don't know I'm whistling. Or I'm humming. I don't. So when I was teaching my children, because my children understood, I always explain in the first day, this is who you have for teacher. She's a little weird, and they were just like, we just deal with it and just remind me if I'm doing something I don't know I'm doing. Because I rock. Sometimes you'll see me just rocking back and forth. I'm always moving. And I'd be they're taking an exam, and I'm in there humming away, not even knowing I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Miss Alexander. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? I just don't know I'm doing things. But I think the thing is it's what I've learned about, because I'm weird, I'm unique in who I am, is to teach the world and teach my children and my students and anyone that I can, is that we don't, who are we to judge? That's God's role. And to make fun of people that were unique and different size. When I see people online mocking people because they're vegans, mocking people because they're obese, mocking whatever, I can't imagine. It's the point, to just get, is that like a clickbait thing to get people to, and then everyone's making fun of these people. Why not say, what can I do to make them feel better about themselves? So, and I know that people will say things about me when they see me. And I was very afraid to do podcasts because I thought people are going to judge. They don't know me. This clown character that's like just so hyper all the time. But I am who I am. And those who will accept me for who I am will allow the negative comments and the negative hurtful things that people say. And when people say those things, I will just say to them, thank you for sharing. I'm sorry. But we have a right to voice what we feel.
Yeah.
What a great world. And this is what the Maasai do. What a great world to just be accepted for who we are.
Do they speak there? Are they direct and blunt with stuff, or very like amongst them?
With me, I mean, and I was so different from them, but all the tribes were very loving. But with the Maasai, they accepted me but again, they all did, but I was with so much with the Maasai most of the time. They never judged me.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all seeing me out there jumping and doing these odd things that especially a woman would never do. I mean, gosh, look at this. She's like jumping it's like a little jumping bean. And the children were just, they couldn't believe this. They would kind of giggle and stuff. But then, and I'll be putting up videos.
Yeah.
They've never been skipping and stuff. I held
Yeah.
their hands, and we're all out. I'm teaching them how to skip, and they're like laughing, and there's just this. They couldn't believe this. And jump over bushes, things they didn't think of doing, and it brought a new concept of fun, you know. And I think that if we can just let go and shake all of this sterile, everyone has to be just, we can't have life. We have to just be this. It's okay to be unique. It's okay to be full of life. It's okay to be, and just to love each other, because, we don't know how long we have on this earth, and why not make it beautiful? Why do we have to be critical and so condemning?
Yeah.
And so it was just so fun to see how accepted I was. And again, they were a little taken back. Again, I'm wearing pants. I look different, and I'm just so different. I mean, even Americans that see me are just like, oh, this is an odd character,
Yeah.
But I think if we look at people to say, are they odd, or is it just, instead of calling odd, they're just so unique? It doesn't mean that they're mean or hurtful. We just have a zest for life. And so anyway, so let's go back to what you're talking about. So the plants. I feel like you keep segueing off of different things. I'm sorry. Anyone who's watching, I'm sorry. It's my brain. We're all over the place. But David, want to reel me back in, honey?
Yeah, you can go do that. We can do the PowerPoint if you want to finish with the, run through some of those.
All right. So here we are again. So a typical day, make sure we've got it up here. A typical day would be in the Maasai now, is they get up every day and they have their chai tea. And again, what's in this chai tea is that bark. And this is the bark that's got the saponins, the polyphenols, the things that, according to my research, that it may have the ability to help with the saturated cholesterol, all of these fats, and to help to clean the arteries, but to help to stabilize and how we digest things. But they make sure they have that all the time. And the chai tea is done usually like in the morning and sometimes in the evening. And then when they make their meat, it's boiled. And then they add the broth from the bark and the herbs and the roots and all the different things. There's all different kinds. They've got something for everything. And they'll add that, and it's got to be stirred and stirred for half an hour. And this is so important how everything is done. It's got to be done exactly to the T, because they know what works. And you'll see them. And they stir and stir and stir and stir and stir with this broth from their bark and their roots and their herbs and things. And they drink, a liter when they go to the opule, which is the 3 to 4 week long with the warriors. Women don't do this. They're just drinking gallons. I mean, it's so much, because they're taking in so much fat and so much. I mean, just that's what all they're eating is just meat and fat, meat and fat. It's just, so they're drinking a lot of this soup.
It seems almost like it's a vestige of some type of ritual sacrifice they used to do. I don't know. I wonder about that.
There's not, but they will tell you they have to have this soup. And they
No,
know.
I mean, when you said they're going off to the camp and just gorging on gallons of.
Well, the reason why they do this is
So-
because they believe that meat and blood makes a man strong mentally and physically.
Right.
And at 15-year period, that's all they focus on is strength in mind and in physically.
But it's like a feast they're doing, right? Where they're just eating tons and tons and tons.
They're trying to build up their manhood, is eating. And they cannot have anything to do with religion for that 15-year period, because they believe that religion will make you soft.
Yeah.
Will make you not mentally sharp. So like when we went to the wedding, which I'll show you coming up, we went to a Maasai wedding and the warriors were there. I was like, oh my gosh, to see them doing their dancing, all the jump, all the stuff, it was just magnificent. But they went into the Boma region, which was totally separate from where the wedding was going on. They could not go and attend where the wedding was, because there was a pastor there. Because again, about 90% of Maasai are now Christians. And so they had a pastor there. It was very, Christian based, and they kept thanking Jesus, and it was just beautiful in the Ma language. But the Maasai warriors were totally out of this. And I kept questioning, but then when Mateo explained to me, well, we can't. In that warrior period, because it makes you soft. And that you have to be strong. That's what we focus on. So I thought that was really powerful to see. Wow. But once they're through that, once they hit 30 years old and you're done with that warrior period, then they can bring religion back in. So from early childhood to 15 with their moms and so forth, they would have a
See, I think that window is a ritual vestige from their whatever their religions from thousands. They probably were doing some type of sacrificial ritual there. This is something that I've studied in the anthropology that research that, you get these kind of festivals. They call them marked out times where you would go away from the camp and you do a type of like a ritual sacrifice of animals, and you have feasts and like, you literally just feasting at such extravagant levels of consumption, and then it's a marked out period, and then you come back and you go back to the normal standard of behavior. So I think that's probably something like that.
But for them, I don't think they think of it as a ritual. They think of it as must do once or twice a year.
Right.
They go 3 to 4 weeks and they're away from the family and they just gorge, just eat and eat. Meat. There's no, it's.
And what do they do the whole time? They just eat and sing, or what are they doing?
You're so full, and it doesn't. I don't think I don't know if they're doing it. Then they'll go down if they're near a water, and then they're bathed and those kinds of things. But it's all about eating all day, pounds and pounds of meat and fat.
And they don't do anything else.
I don't know.
During that time.
Doesn't sound like it's a lot of. I mean, if they're walking, they may do some walking because that's important. But I think there's a lot of sleeping too. But I'll ask Mateo to give me more details about. But I'm hoping I can go. We're trying to plan where I can actually go and be a woman there watching exactly what happens for 3 to 4.
It might change the way they do it if it's some kind of a
They won't. And I said when they always there, don't change. I need to see. I want the truth.
Yeah.
And I think because the tribe knows me now, I've been there. I think that they're proud that I care. I care enough. I want to know because I value them so. I just love them so. Yeah. And so I'm excited to think that I could go and actually see and experience. Yeah. I can't eat what they do. It's too much fat for me. I get too much diarrhea and stuff. But I want to go. I want to be there with them. I want to change their personality. I've read in studies that there's just things that to actually witness. I would like to see.
I want to ask. We go back to this slide to get where you picked up that. What is your estimated caloric intake that they're taking? I mean, excuse me, caloric output. How much calories are they burning based on their daily calorie burn? What do you think it is?
I didn't plug that in, but according to what I'm reading, with everything. With their calorie, I don't think I have time, but I'll let you know later on. I've heard that they really are almost in a deficit. By the time they're done with their day of walking or moving, whatever they're doing, they're in a calorie deficit.
So they're burning just as much as they're consuming? They're
burning probably more than they're taking in.
What about, are they doing any fasting? Do they have a day where they don't eat?
That's that question. I asked them, I said, okay, guys, fasting is really, they think it's so funny what people think. They get laughing because they can't believe it. And this makes sense because I was like, oh, it's so true. When I said, do you guys believe in fasting? First of all, they didn't know what that meant. And I had to explain it. And I said, where you take time off from eating. They're like, what? They said, that's what our existence is finding food. Yeah. We get up to find food. We live to find food.
Even Maasai?
They said this. I said, but are there ever times that you do fast? And Mateo said the only time a fast would happen is if we've lost a livestock and we have to go and find them. And he said, and then you stop what you're doing. And he said, it may take 1 or 2 days and you're not going to eat. He said, unless you find some berries and things out in nature while you're looking, because this is how important this animal is that's missing. Yeah. And he said, so you could be maybe, and he goes, rarely will it happen. But he said, no, we do not believe in fasting. It's all about taking in the nutrients. They said that they thought that was a crazy idea. They said, we live in the native world and it makes sense. That's what their life is. They live for food. They live for their meal, or you live to take care of their cattle, which is.
What's their climate? Subtropical, or what is it?
It's a desert. It was mostly very hot. But rainy season when I was there, it was a wet season.
But they have like fruit available 24/7. Or no, excuse me, they have food. There's no period where they're going without food. Is what I'm trying to get at. Like I'm thinking about like northern climates, you know, like the northern European Vikings, they're going through periods where there's nothing to eat and stuff.
Well, have tubers. There are always tubers. Tubers
Okay.
are 24/7 because really they're just they're on the, it's not like they're growing crops. In the Pacific's different. In
Yeah.
Africa, especially the hunters and gatherers, they are not agro, they're not farmers.
Yeah.
So, and we talked about this when I was with the women and we were out looking, the tubers, the shumako that's on that they're pulling out, looks like a sweet potato, that's part of the root. There's just these bulbs that grow off of the root that they're cutting off. You know, it's a tuber, it's like a root. And those grow all year long. There's never not going to be a tuber. There's never not going to be greens. You know, in the dry season, there may not be as many greens that they have like during the wet season, which was now when I was there in February.
Yeah.
But in the dry season, it's going to be probably slim pickings with the greens, but there may be some.
Yeah.
There will always be tubers. Baobab will be coming in, so they'll be able to have the baobab. Of course, then they'll have the honey because that season's coming now. So it's everything again is seasonal, but the wild plum is, you know, like 2 months, like around the time I was there in February, and there may be another batch of the wild plum, which is their favorite, around October time. There may be another outburst of that fruit as well. But in terms of the Maasai, again, they'll eat the berries that are in season. They don't eat the roots and they don't eat the bark. They boil them and they extrapolate.
Right. This is interesting. Go ahead.
Look at this slide. Isn't this slide? Yeah. This is what, and this is only the Maasai. They divide all the different animals and parts to the different genre and sector of the tribes. So everyone's
this is the original Golden Corral. This is what it would look like when you go to the buffet.
Isn't it? So the young boys will get the chest and the back part of the tail. You've got a lot of fat.
And now let's pause because I'm gonna. Is this what this particular clan or tribe does in the Maasai, or is this what all the Maasai do?
Again, as we said earlier, some Maasai are not as traditional anymore.
Yeah.
But the tribes I was with, I really wanted to be with traditional.
Okay.
And they continue to do this. This is important.
So are you surmising then that this is probably what all of them used to do at some point?
This is the Maasai tradition. This is
okay.
Because
in terms of who gets what cuts?
Yes.
Is it strict on this too, or like every time, or is this generally just what they do?
I said, what if you're gone? What if you guys are doing your opioid and you're gone? They go, someone brings that meat back. We cannot eat what belongs to the women. You cannot eat what belongs.
So, like for example, I'm looking at your slide. It says women get the cow's heart, and then men get the sheep heart. That never changes.
No, you can't
never.
eat. I said that. So I said, you're never gonna just like when you guys go away for 3 or 4 weeks to do the warrior camp. You're not gonna eat that. No, someone brings that back. That's not ours. That's not ours. They said everything has to be fair. That's how. And again, look at the nutrient breakup. Look at the breakdown. The women are getting 2 of the animals, and look at the liver, the cow, the biggest one. Because why? We talked about this earlier in another podcast. Because the women, when they go through menstruation, they're losing all this iron. They're losing important parts that they need to be healthy. Look what they know through the ancestral wisdom, that the women are going to need more of the liver than the men. And look who gets the other liver. So 2 of the livers of so the sheep and the cow liver go to the women, and the other liver goes to the elder men. They know who needs it the most.
Yeah. Why do the elder men need the goat liver?
Because again, I think it's the nutrients. I think that they're probably thinking for the iron, the energy that they're going to, you get the unbelievable copper. There's so much that we need as we get older, but the women need a little bit more.
And do they have a conception now of iron and all these things, or they don't have words or conceptions for this?
I don't know if they even think of in terms of the children, the ones who have gone to school do, but the elders themselves, they just know they'll try to explain it by like when I said, why are you using this bark? They aren't giving me the polyphenol. They aren't using the word. They're just saying, we know that we know. So they can't put it into words. It's just what's been passed down from generation to generation.
Yeah.
This is what we must do to survive.
So boys get the chest and back part of the tail of the cow.
And you'll see that when Mateo is dissecting, when he's slaughtering the lamb that I bought for the hadzabi, where he talks about this. This is the part that would go to the boys. This is go to the girls. This part of the tail.
It's interesting, and it's interesting how this is something that we think a lot of, and when we look at the anthropology of ancient societies, is the importance of differentiation. And you have to have boundaries of differentiation, and you can't cross that. And it makes sense that you have to, now let me just put it this way, that you have to not just what they specifically need, like boys need the chest and back part of the tail. Well, obviously a boy might find benefit in eating a part of the other piece of meat, right? Like some ribs, it's not going to kill a kid to eat some ribs, but there's a ritual order to, like, this is that way. There's no fighting, I think, right? There's no fighting.
Everything again.
There's no free for all, right? It's like, this is what I always get, and this is what you always get, and it's not about you as a person and your taste. It's about you as an identity and a member of the tribe. That's interesting.
It's very. I felt so biblical the whole time I was there. I was like, they get it, because everything was based on respect.
Yeah.
And I believe that this is what this. When you look at this, it's very much, you see that the elder men are picked out. That we revere them. They have to get this, and they are so revered. When you see an elder man walking in, I mean, it's first of all, just how they look, it takes your breath away. Like, they're so beautiful. They're just so regal when they come in, and they walk with such a command of presence, but they all do. They all do. They walk with this unbelievable presence of it's just such a superior being. It's unbelievable. Takes your breath away. But they understand that we know that the nutrients that our family the generations have decided are best for us. We aren't going to question this.
Yeah.
Know that as we age, we will get into that point where this will become powerful. But most of them, the women and the children, most of their diet is the milk.
Yeah.
They aren't warriors. And this is the older men too. They don't go off. It's not about just meat all the time. They become more milk based.
Yeah.
And so milk really is. So it's, again, but looking at the tribe, it's been in research, and they're talking about all the plants. Oh no, but they really did eat this. It depends on the specific tribe. Even if they're considered they're Maasai. And were they Maasai? Because there are some tribes that dress exactly like Maasai. And sometimes I'm wondering, were they really Maasai that they were even dealing with? They could have been another branch, like the Sonjo. They dress very much like the Maasai, but they eat a lot of plants.
So the elder men only eat goat liver when it comes to meats?
No. That's just with that. No, the elder men are with the men. They're in the men group, but they are specifically, they will be given that liver. So if we're eating and we have a goat there,
okay,
you're not, the young men will not eat that goat liver. So like when I was there was, the elder men were always there with us, and they were the ones that were getting that goat liver. Nobody else. Just
so the men keep all the ribs for themselves. That has a universal issue, I think, that's been established.
Think about it. The Bible with Adam. I heard that. I was like, this is so biblical, Although I kind of thought maybe it should be women because the rib was given to us, but I just thought,
it's just like you see at every Sonny's in America. The barbecue, the restaurant. The men get the big ribs, and the woman gets the salad bar and the potato. The men have always been taking all the ribs, right? So,
and then look at this. They also remember, again, biblical. Love thy neighbor. Look at the neighbor. They always make sure that a leg goes to them.
Now does the leg still get? Because let's see, who gets the hind leg?
Well, one hind leg of all the animals, no matter what you're having, one hind leg will go to your neighbor. Yeah. And then another, depending what it is. So like a woman, she'll get one leg of the sheep.
Yeah.
And then she'll get one leg of the cow. So therefore, the men, the men are only going to, they're only going to get one hind leg, and that's only from the goat.
Yeah.
But
there's that picture of the stomach you have in the middle, has that been boiled, or what is that, raw still?
That was boiled.
Okay. Is that what you were given for dinner?
I was eating that because I was with the men, and I said I wanted I want to try. And so it still had like the bile and stuff, still some, and then I said, oh, and I've got a video of myself. I don't know if I want to put it on because I was like, oh, it was like really rough. But honestly, there was no, you'll hear me saying, there's no flavor. It wasn't yucky. It wasn't like, you know what I mean? It was just really rubbery and like, but it just seemed like the bile and stuff was still kind of left part of it there and stuff. I was
They
like,
eat that only on the weekends.
no.
The reason why I say that is, you go to Mexican, culture here in America, and they have menudo soup, which is the stomach soup, and they traditionally only eat that on Saturday or Sunday as a hangover food, like a medicinal properties with
No,
probably the soup, the stuff in the soup that they go with it.
Goes with it, of course, with the herbs that they're putting in. But no, this is whenever they do a slaughter. This is just whatever it is. But again, so if they're going to do an opio, which is when the warriors go away for that 3 to 4 weeks, they will bring back the pieces that belong to the tribe. Not without. But I just thought it was fascinating. So that's the breakdown of, and of course you can see over here, this is the suet hanging here. These are a couple legs here too. This is the suet, which is the fat around the kidney. That's like their prize. That's a really important fat as well. And they want to make sure that's always in their soup. Because, the suet's got really wonderful vitamin A, K2. It's got awesome stuff in that fat. There's D in it, vitamin D, E. You've got a lot of that fat.
There's super saturated fat too.
Extreme, but that's when they add in the bark and the nutrients where they stir for half an hour, because they said otherwise they would be so sick. There's so much fat and everything. And they believe that's why I'm telling you, wait till you see what I'm going to come out with when it comes to all of their herbs, and not just Maasai. This is across all of the extreme, when we think of extremely healthy population, they've all got a version. They've all got a version.
Even in the Pacific Islands, you saw that? Yeah.
There's always something that they're using plant-wise. There's always plants. So here we go. This is the breakdown. We did this on the last one. So this was their take. So now, and this is what they're doing most of the time I was there, because we only slaughtered a couple times that week. And again, you're splitting that meat up, so you're not getting much, and you'll see that in the next slide. But in 6 liters of milk for a man, some may do 7 or 8. I just kind of did an average. And this would be the kind of milk we have here. This would be what you might get from a standard American cow. It's lower in fat. Okay. But when you go to the zebu, okay, this is similar to what the Maasai zebu would have. It's a 5.5. They may even have a 6 or a 7% fat. But this is as close as I could get to what they would have in Africa. So let's look at the zebu milk here. So they would 23% protein, 27% carbs, 51% fat. Their calories would be 4,500 calories, 250 grams. Carbs, it's almost 300 grams.
Yeah.
Fat, 250 grams. Same thing with the women. We go over here. They're doing about 4 liters. Okay, so let's go down to the zebu. Again, 5.5% fat, milk fat, 23, same thing breakdown. 23%, 27 grams of carbs, 51. Calories, 3,060. Protein, 170. Net carbs, 203. And fat, 170 grams. And so in a day, on their milk day, that they're drinking liquid mostly, they work that off fast. They work that, and I was with them, and it's a lot of work. And you'll see that in a slide when I show you just with the women. But the men are walking all day, and the children, if you're a boy. And again, this is just showing you the leg up in the tree. They just hang it for a while just to kind of get the fat to kind of they said when it dries a little bit, it cooks better. Just a thought, but it's not aging for very long. It's only there for a couple of minutes. So now I'm going to go on to, I hope this works. I've never done where I can do like a link to something, a hyperlink. Let's see if it works. Can you see it?
Yeah, I can see this one.
Thank you. All right, so here we go. So this is this would be the man. You can see here I've got it labeled here, the Maasai diet. This would be for the 6 liters. All right, so do the breakdown. Here's the breakdown that I came up with. So you've got you can see the protein, the carbs, and the fat over here. Can you see that, David? Can you see all that?
Yeah.
Now, if we go over here and we look at their energy, this is how it's breaking down. So look at their fat. So let's see what the fat here is just showing. Again, the only thing they're eating this day is just milk. So there's not going to be a whole breakdown of what everything is. So everything's milk. But look at their nutrient van. They're the macros versus the micros. This is micros. Look at the thiamine they're getting. Look at that. I mean, a lot of people struggle getting enough thiamine, and I really think that's a.
Where's thiamine? I don't see it. Oh, there it is. Okay, yeah.
Look at that. Isn't that? It's huge, but but again, chronometer does not measure a lot of things accurately. The K2 is not accurate, is not measured accurately. The E is not accurately measured. A lot of things are not accurate on chronometer because I keep going and rechecking it against other programs. And so it have accurate values in a lot of these. So don't take it as if it's gospel. So I think it would be off the chart when it comes to K and E and so forth. Again, calcium. Look at the calcium they're getting. You know, calcium is right here. Look at the calcium.
I don't see any fluoride. How are their teeth not falling out?
Well, of course, fluoride is here. It doesn't measure it because there's fluoride in everything. There's a natural versus the chemical.
Yeah, I'm joking, but they're obviously not fortifying their life with fluoride, and they have great teeth, right? So.
The iodine. People think that iodine is only going to come from the sea life, anything from algae and things. Look at the iodine they're getting.
And that's just from the milk. That's not from blood, huh?
Isn't that right? It's not. We're not talking iron. We're talking iodine. You know, and of course, their iron is everything. Look at the magnesium they're getting.
Yeah.
No wonder they sleep well.
Do they eat the other stuff too? We didn't mention like like pancreas and thyroid and thalamus and all that.
They eat almost everything. The only thing they are not going to eat is, of course, they don't do the large intestine. They aren't not going to eat that. They'll eat the intestine. They'll eat the stomach. They do not eat the brain. They will not eat the brain. They do not eat the eyes. So there's a lot of things like in the head. There's a lot of things the head they just don't really do much with. But everything else the colon they don't do. But they eat a lot of the organs and the like. I think it was a I don't know if it's trachea. There was something we got a bowl of at the when we went to the chief's inauguration, and they brought us a bowl. And it was I'm like, what is this? I think it was the trachea. And I put it in my mouth and like I couldn't get through it. It's like I gave it to Mateo. He's like, he just ground through it, and it's just like he goes, "Oh, I love it!" You know, it's so funny to watch them eat. And I'm like, oh, it's looking at his mouth, and it's so powerful. But look over here when you look at their protein. I'll bring this up here. And it's remarkable. This is their protein. Look at what they're getting here. You know, I mean, and then you look at their cholesterol. Look at the cholesterol off the chart. Their trans fats. You know, it's considered high in terms of what our world says is natural. But look at their omega-3. Look at their omega-3 and omega-6 break. Look at this.
Yeah.
So low in PUFA.
Yeah.
Look at their omega. Look at that.
Yeah, the omega-6 is at what, 4 grams?
Yeah.
Right? And that's about the ratio that Ray Pete says you want to stay, what is it, no more than 4 grams a day, is it? 4 or 5 grams?
This is profound when you look at their breakdowns of everything. You know, their
3
sugar.
grams, he said, to stay, he typically, I don't remember.
It's not, you don't want to have a lot, but still, you look at the ratio between the two, and look at this. And
milk is the perfect food, right? I mean, theoretically, in theory, if you're not messed up or screwed up, like it's the perfect macros, it's complete food, isn't it?
Food. And so I just found this fascinating. So this is the men's breakdown, and this is the women's. This is what theirs would be. Let's move this up right here. So this is what the women's would look like. So again, this is if they're doing 4 liters of milk, and that would be 2,800 calories, and that's not a lot. Consider what they're doing. And then look at their breakdown again. But they're not showing. I really don't believe that these are accurate. I do not believe the E and the K and all this. I don't believe that's correct. I really don't. But again, look at this, the thiamine, the riboflavin. This is not even eating the liver when you think of riboflavin because that's so high. But look at what they're getting. The calcium again, copper. Look at the copper. Look at that copper. The iodine off the chart. It's so funny to see this. Magnesium again. You know, they're getting these important minerals that you can't get just from eating meat.
Yeah.
Can't get. You know, and it's quite profound when you look at this. Now let's look at what would be if we're going to add meat. So they've done a slaughter. This is what would change. Let's see what it would look like with it. Now we're going to add meat. So this is the men's. This would be, again, I kind of reduced it down a bit. Instead of doing 6 liters, they're going to do 5. They don't drink as much milk the day they're having meat. So I brought it down to 5 liters. Again, the milk here, and then they're going to do a little bit of sugar. I'm adding sugar here because they do either add seasonal, whether it's honey or cane sugar, to their chai tea every morning. And so I'm just saying it's 1 teaspoon. Okay. And I just want to try to give it a practical thing. Here's the heart, a lamb heart. They're going to do 4 ounces, and that's probably being too generous. I don't know if they would really get that much because they're splitting it. And I'm just being generous. Lamb, the ribs, I'm thinking maybe 6 ounces they might get because again, they're splitting everything. I'm giving them a little bit of leg, 3 ounces, and then I'm giving them a full liter when they do the soup.
And they boil all of this, or they roast some of it?
The legs are usually nicely roasted, like a slow cook, leaned against the fire. So the ribs, the leg, and the liver are usually slow cooked, leaning towards the coals.
How did that taste? Did you get to try that?
I get the liver. I mean, I love liver, and I don't normally cook it. I just normally eat it raw. It was delicious.
Wait, you're saying you ate liver raw here?
When I'm home, I eat raw liver.
Oh, okay, but they did not.
I ate raw kidney. They will eat raw kidney. But
what do they do with the liver? They cooked it or boiled it?
There was a slide I had during the hadzabi that showed how they cooked it, slow cooked it, like whatever, and it was delicious. Okay. Yes.
But so the lamb roast, was that what is that? How does that compare to the best lamb roast you've ever had in like a restaurant?
Theirs is so different because again, it is not aged.
Right.
Everything is very tough, extremely tough. And so I was really struggling to get through. And this is another thing that to me, and people are gonna think I'm weird, but I research everything. I'm a researcher. There is proof that that when we touch our food compared to using silverware, that there's health benefits. The enjoyment, it will reduce stress. There's so much coming to when we touch our food that none of the tribes use silverware. Everything is your hands. And of course, I always have a napkin with me because I have this really thing. I've always got something with me to wipe my hands with. And so I said, well, what do you guys do? You don't have napkins. And they would just wipe it on the tree, the bark of the tree. Wipe their hands on that or on the ground. You know what I mean? They thought it was funny. I always had my napkin to wipe things off. There's and I've been using just my fingers for years because of research. I wanted to be ancestral. So I use my hands to usually eat everything with, and soup wise, they drink. It's in a cup, and they'll drink it or a bowl. So it's just something to think about, guys. You may find you find so much more enjoyment by touching it. I know it's kind of a little dirty and kind of greasy, but it's human, and that's why we have the opposable thumb and so forth to grab and to do things with. And and again, research. Well, I'll be writing about these things. It's so powerful. It's just so powerful.
So what did you prefer, milk days or meat days on the menu?
I had to have meat every day. I would, no matter what. So I made sure that before we went to all the tribes, I wasn't sure what, and I didn't want to eat a lot of their meat because I know it's got to be divided. So we always had a supply tent, which was one of the ones that got attacked by the hyena. And so we would always have a supply of meat.
And what was your meat? How did you do?
It was always, well, Meneno, he's from the Iranian. And so he's an amazing chef, and he had learned he was saying all my problems so quickly, and so he would boil because I only boil. I don't like things over a fire. I don't like that because again, I look at the acrylamides and the heterocyclamines and all these things that can be carcinogenic. But the Maasai almost feels the same way. They know intuitively they boil most of their meat, and if they're going to cook it, it cannot be near the fire. They don't want all this char. They do a very slow cook. And again, I was like, oh my gosh, it's their wisdom. They know they don't want to have it. They don't want to have it touching the fire. When you look at the Hadzabi, they would just throw it right on the fire and it's getting all burned and charred. But the Maasai, oh no, we don't do that. So I thought, oh my golly, this is so neat. I've always boiled my food. Because
what do you think it is about the pastoralists that they have such different ways of approaching the consumption of meat than the hunter-gatherer, the Hadzabi?
It's their belief. The Maasai, and again, here it's a biblical thing. They don't want to take a life. They want to live so one with nature. And I could not believe when we're driving through, and you see the zebras and the elephants and the giraffes all walking in the same area. Maasai are tending to their flocks and their livestock. The animals know not to be afraid of them. They've learned where the Maasai live. This species is not going to hurt us. We're safe because they exude love. And they talked about a lot with me because I'm all about the same thing. And I said, so what, when you take a life for your food, and they said, it's big to us. we revere these animals. We love them. They're everything. And you can see how they love them, how they care for them. They're everything to them. And so it's so different because the Hadzabe, they don't think about life, that we take life because it's going to give us life. And so that's why the Maasai are more milk-based, because they don't
Yeah, but I mean, how do they have different views about, like you said, the way the Hadzabe would just throw it on the fire versus the Maasai are more, they don't want it the fire. Like, why do you think they have different views on that as like for proof?
I really believe the Hadzabe are more, they've got their own wisdom that's been passed down, and most of their wisdom is based on how are you going to hunt, what animals can we eat, what animals can we not eat, what plants are we going to eat, what are the most healthy plants for us, although they're going to eat most of the things that they can get, but they know that there's medicinal plants that they've learned. When you look at the Maasai, everything they do is based on their health.
Mm-hmm.
They are this special human being, like they're chosen to understand the importance of this temple. Even the way they carry their posture, everything is based on, this is the only body I've got. I'm going to take care of this body. And it's evident in everything they think, they say, they do, how they treat people, how they expect to be treated. Everything, every pillar of their life is based on, their mind, their heart, their soul, everything. And so it's been passed down from wisdom that understand the importance of how our food is prepared, and we can't burn it. And so they boil most of it, and they also know that it's also extrapolating the nutrients in water, so you're going to get even more out of it when you're drinking their soups. But they don't age it, so again, it's not getting the histamines. Everything.
I see an advertisement for a sub sandwich company there on your slide. It's not, it's just the website you're on. What would they do if you gave them that meal in that picture?
Oh my gosh.
Would they enjoy it?
I don't think they would eat it because they understand.
Did you see it? It's gone now. It just moved.
It's not coming up. But
would they eat like a sub sandwich with lettuce, tomato, and bread? Or would they be like, what is this?
And even like when I was with them, with the Hadzabe, and the Hadzabe was like the tubers to eat. Mateo wasn't with me at that time. I had Tembo with me, and you can see it on the video. He didn't want to eat it because it's not part of his diet. But then I said, and afterwards I apologized. I said, honey, I know. I said, you're a Messiah, I shouldn't be saying, but he did try it. He's like, oh, he'd say it is sweet, but it wasn't something he would gravitate towards. So the Maasai, those who are really staying true to their diet, and I do know Maasai who don't. So, and Mateo would tell you, when he goes to Arusha, which is, they're considered a city, that's where his business is. So he's got an apartment there, and they don't have the milk. He can't get his milk. And so he will try to buy meat, but the meat is so expensive. So it's out of his budget. And he tries to afford as much meat as he can, but he does resort to eating some food, and like tomatoes. I know it's gonna sound weird. He was trying to do tomatoes, and he didn't know why until he met me. He kept getting the worst digestive problems. He would have to go to the emergency room. He was so sick all the time, but he was eating some processed food as well. And they wanted to put him on all this medication. And he said, of course, he calls me, Mom, I didn't know what to do. He goes, but now I understand by being with you, all of these things were destroying me.
Yeah.
I can't tolerate them. And again, talk about Ugali, and we did his blood glucose. And we realized every time he would eat Ugali or something, his blood glucose would shoot, but it didn't go very high. I think the highest it went was like 134. I said, well, honey, I said, that's still, to me, we have to. That keeps our insulin working correctly. I said, I think nature, anyone who's trying to scare us saying we have to have a flat line, I think that's when you're going to get problems. Yeah. You have to have fluctuations. It's on, is it going to stay up or is it going to come down? And within minutes, I would test him, and that would come right back down. What
do you think is the good, healthy fasting glucose? Do you have, or do you think it varies?
Because the more and more I was taking with the tribes, many of the women, and there was one man, they actually had some, and they had consumed food. They had consumed like chai tea. They had like in this, like 66. I was like, wow. And so, because a lot of them hadn't fasted. It already had something by the time I was doing them. And I thought, that low, and they had chai tea, or, and things like that. And it was like, so I can't wait to go back and to really do okay, guys, you're not going to eat when you get up in the morning. I'm going to test you at fasting. And I mean, would theirs go down to like 50? Would they be in 40? Because I think that when we're looking at what our world thinks is healthy in terms of fasting blood glucose, what would be optimum? What would ancestral people be? What would their blood, what would their cholesterol? Now, when you look at the Maasai that have been done in the past, their cholesterol is like 135, 130. And look at now, here's my question though. Is it, and this is all the research I'm going to be showing, is it because genetically wise, they have a gene that is adapted to this? That's one theory. 2, is it because they're working it off? 3, is it the plants? 4, there's another theory that someone came up with. Is it because they're in such a state of peace that's also helping? I don't know if I go for that one, but there's a lot of theories that are out there. My feeling is it could be, there's 3 possible really good theories. Have they genetically polymorphism that shows that they are able to handle extreme amounts of cholesterol and saturated fat? The genetic has been showing that does show that. 2, the plants. Are the roots and the barks that they're boiling, is that helping to cleanse and to keep everything low? And then their movement, the ongoing movement. So these are things, I mean, they don't have high cholesterol, and yet they did have plaque buildup. So I don't know. It's just things to think about.
Yeah.
So again, we have to all look at our genetic DNA. What can we handle? What is best for us? What, you know, to me, I don't want to take a risk with my life, because I watched my father with massive heart attacks and strokes and all these things. And yes, I know he was a big meat eater as well. And
so what's the risk you're saying? Eating meat or just eating meat and not moving?
Yeah, so I'm always exercising to make sure. But I
think it's clear if you don't move, regardless of what you eat, you're going to be sick and die.
We have to move. Not sedentary. And you know, even when I go to Okinawa and stuff, they're walking all the time. They walk all the time.
Yeah.
Now, so this is the men. So look at their breakdown. They're getting a lot of meat and still a lot of milk. They're getting, you know, over 4,000 calories again. And again, look at the breakdown. Look at this. And don't go by these. I think these are totally wrong. Anything in gray, I think they're totally wrong on that. But it's beautiful. Look at their cholesterol again. It is off the chart over here. The cholesterol is off the chart. That's saying, but there's natural trans fats and everything. And they're saturated fat again. But again, look at the omega-3 to omega-6. You know, it's profound when you think of what they're eating, what they're consuming, all that they're getting nutrients. So that's the men. Here's the women's breakdown, much smaller than what. So they're doing like 3,300 calories. Again, I did keep them at 4 liters of milk, because milk is really something that they go to. They drink a lot of milk in their chai tea. And again, they got their 1 teaspoon of sugar because it's in their chai tea. And they're doing their desi milk, which is again the zebu cow.
So they're drinking those 4 liters in the morning, or 2 in the morning and 2 at night?
And sometimes it may be different. It may be 1 liter in the morning and maybe 3 or. But as Mateo
so
said,
they're just like, it's like hot, and they just go back to their house and drink some milk, like kind of thing throughout the day.
They all come together, and again, this is part of their.
Oh, they don't ever eat individually.
No, you never eat alone.
Okay.
You never eat alone. You're always together with someone. You're never alone, and that's part of their culture. Again, that even the elders, and they said that's where depression, that's where loneliness, that's where you start willing yourself to die if you're alone. They said, we're never alone. You're always with someone. And I couldn't believe how much love that they exude. And so every morning they all come out as the sun's coming up, because they're coming to get all their cattle, and all the neighbors, everyone's coming in to see. So the men will come to see each other, and the women will come out to see each other, and they're tending. And then they go into someone's hut. Someone's got milk going. We've got the chai tea. They all sit down and they have a half liter. Then they'll go to someone else's hut, and they'll all sit down and drink another half liter. So as Mateo said, you could end up drinking 4 or 5 liters of chai tea, which is made with, I'd say it's like a 3-to-1 ratio, 3 parts milk, 1 part water. You could have like, who knows, 3 before you even head out for the day. So a lot of their milk is consumed in their chai.
What are they doing while are they just chatting? Or are they just talking about the news of the day?
Talking about, you know, they don't have TV. So they just talk your night, you know, how's everything going with your cattle, you know, how's the family? It's just they care. And when you're talking, this is another important piece. When they talk, and this is in all the tribes. So if you're talking, David, and you're saying something to me, I would be going, eh, eh, because I'm showing you, I'm signaling to you, I'm hearing your every word, and my eyes don't leave you. Because I always feel like in our world, now, especially with cell phones, it's like, is anyone listening? They're always looking at their screen.
Yeah.
No, it's like, did you hear? And then people say, what did you just say? Because they were tuned out. But
Right.
we want to make sure they're so respectful in these tribes. Again, it's so beautiful. We need to learn
Did you
from.
see any of them that had ADD or ADHD?
I was the only.
Yeah.
They could tell. They knew that there was something different.
Did you imitate them and go, like that too? Or did you
Oh,
not
I
do
just
that?
sat there in awe because I was just like,
Yeah.
this is so beautiful. I always really like crying a lot because it was just so profound to me to sit and be living ancestrally.
What do they think about you crying a lot? What do they think about that?
At first, they didn't understand why, but then they started realizing it was beautiful because they could see how much I loved them and how much it meant to me to be there with them. And that was powerful for them to see
Yeah.
someone who loved them that was so not. And then they, like with the Maasai, we want you to be, we want to adopt you.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping one day I will go back and I will into Mateo's Maasai tribe, that I will be adopted into his family and be like the Letiet. I'll be the little white Maasai, But it's just the love that we're missing. Like when I think about, I'm retired and my children who moved and they have their lives and so forth, and my grandchildren are gone. I'm out running and I do my thing. I never hardly see anyone. Some of the neighbors kind of come out and wave, but no one's going to come over and see me in the morning to say, Suze, how you doing?
Yeah.
It's, but that would never happen in the Maasai. Would never they will always check to make sure that you got to come out. If you don't come out, someone's going to go see you.
Yeah.
Because they want to make sure you're okay, that you're loved, that you're honored and respected. When the children enter, they come home from you're being out with the flocks, or they come home from school, they will literally bow their head, and the elder you touch their head to honor that they're showing honor to you, and you're honoring them back. The respect, you never see a single hurtful word being said, never anger displayed, never awful language, hurtful. I mean, it's profound. The peace that they have, and it was in all the tribes, was remarkable, remarkable.
Mhm.
And I think that's another part to the pillar. And they've talked about that in the blue zones with a lot of the places in the blue zones, that peace that they have, the stress, even though it's a stressful situation especially in the Hadzabe, you got to go out and find your food. I mean, the Maasai, they've got their milk every day, no matter what. I mean, unless their cattle and so forth die. But that's why they have the sheep and the goats, because they can live on hardly nothing. They can, especially the goats, they can eat bark and they can eat anything they can find that's still growing.
So those are their backup.
Yes, they're back up. And they use them a lot, especially in the summertime when the cattle starts dying because they've taken away their land and there's no grazing place to take them now.
Wow.
It's
Wow.
awful. So this is so the women would eat maybe, again, I'm going to still keep them at 4 liters of milk. And so they would do the soup. I'm thinking maybe a liter. They're going to do, this is like half a liter. I'm giving them just a half a liter of soup. A lamb leg, about 2 ounces, because they're splitting it. The beef heart, they're splitting it 2 ounces. And then maybe I thought I'll give them some lamb chops, but it wouldn't be a chop. I'm just calling it that cut. So I'm giving them about 3 ounces. Again, 3,500 calories. And just look, their
Yeah.
look at their carbs that they're getting. Again, just under 200 carbs, protein, plenty of it. They're getting over 200 grams of protein a day. But again, they're working hard. They're working a lot, and you'll see that in the pictures. But again, look at this breakdown. It's amazing. So now we're going to look at, this is where the women, what their day would be. So you can see, and there's videos, you can see them, you can hear them whoosh, when they make sounds and they're cutting and so forth. And we were there for, of course, it's so hot. And it was, and it's elephant territory. You can see where elephants had come in and push trees down and so forth. It was just beautiful, and they worked so hard, so hard. And if you can see here on their backs here, can you see right here, David? I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It was at least 150 pounds, and they lift it and put it on themselves. And they've got belts wrapped around it that they've made out of the hide of the animals, and then it hangs off of their heads, and then they carry it along their, and, we had a couple miles to walk with that. But that was hours of chopping and bundling it all together and then putting it on their heads. And this will be their firewood. So they do this every day because that fire is going all the time. And so they're chopping wood. Of course, they're always washing, doing their laundry. That's how they do their laundry. And then after they do this, they've got to go get water. And the water, they may use this. Now look at the color of this water.
Mm-hmm.
This is very temporary though. This is only during the rainy season. In the dry season, which is coming up, they're going to have to walk miles and miles to find water if they can find it. And that's my biggest concern with a lot of them, is so much of their land is being taken away where they would have gone to get water, that I'm hoping we can somehow raise money or do something that we can actually have wells that are drilled, and they can have like multiple spigots coming off of it. And they're getting in closer regions so that they don't have to walk 15, 20 miles to go find that well. You know, it would be great in a few miles of all of the tribes. They can all just go and get.
That'd be great.
Beautiful. And then of course they're going to be milking morning and night, the cows, the sheep, and the goats.
Has anybody ever tried doing wells for them before?
There are a couple in the region, and I've seen them. They're gorgeous, but they're so far away. This tribe where I was, both the tribes I was living with, there was not a well nearby. So they walk miles and miles to get their water. And so I would just love to be able to put more of these wells.
What does it mean, maintaining the home? Are they decorating their home, or are they sweeping?
Just make sure, again, the maintaining would be they sweep. So they've got little broom. Look at some of the things that videos you can see them sweeping, and it's beautiful. I mean, and you think it's a dirt floor and stuff, but it's profound, a difference between the tribes that
What do they think about feminism? Like a woman shouldn't have to do those things.
That's in the videos. We talked about that. As a man, what is a woman? What are their roles? And they very Ephesians chapter 5. It's very that the woman, cares for her husband. She cares for her home and children. It's very biblical. And the man is to protect and to provide. And they live that. It's these are our roles. You do not cross that. This is the role.
What's that third picture showing here with the
washing? She's washing. This is how they wash their clothes.
What is she washing that with?
This is water, and then she had a little bar of soap that they have. And I said, do they get that from the market? And they said, yeah. But it's very much like what it's like it's an organic butter, like soap that they would use. But they get that from the markets that when they go. And so they make their jewelry, and that helps them to be able to afford like their soap and things that they would go to get.
Do they do anything like jewelry work or anything for leisure?
They do. I think I don't know if I've got that on here. Let me see, David. Hold on. Why is that not going here? Okay, did I do the right one? Yeah. So they do. I don't know. I think that I've got one that like in the afternoon, when they get the morning type big chores are done, they'll sit down. All the women come together and they sit down and they make beautiful. And I've got a lot of jewelry that they gave me, that they made for me, because they love it. They wear so much of the jewelry. It's just such a part of their life, is to ornate them, just to decorate their bodies. And so here I am milking my first goat, and I thought, oh my gosh, it was so easy. I could actually do it. The milking the cow was just a whole nother realm. But this is the men out tending. And so you can see where they will walk miles and keep moving them, always regenerating the land. And it's not the same.
How did their grazing method look compared to like Joel Salatin's method, if you're familiar with that at all?
Well, and this is the biggest piece I wanted to talk to you about this. And I said, but don't you give them supplemental feed? I said, we always hear, what about salt? They're like, no. And I said, but don't they need it? And they said, they get everything they need. Everything that they need is in the soil. It's in the grass. It's in the plants that they're eating. And I said, even their salt? Absolutely. I said, so you don't have a salt lick or anything out there? Nope. So, and I keep reading. People saying, how is all this salt? Even the chickens, there's no supplemental. And I said, you don't give them anything? They said, the only thing they give them is the aloe vera plant, which is water, and they'll have like a dish of water for the chickens to have. And if the chickens know that they need it, the chickens will go and eat that. And they're pristine. I mean, they don't eat chicken eggs.
Do they make those clothes that you're wearing in the first picture? All these clothes they're all wearing?
And I said, and there was a tag. No, they said I said, but all years and years and years ago, where did it come from? And they said, we've always, as far back as they can remember, that they haven't made these, that these have been given to them, but they buy these. These are made by like different Maasai places. However, not cotton. They are not cotton. Because I checked. I said, because I'm a cotton girl, I'm an organic cotton, or,
What was it?
It was polyester.
Wow.
And so I said, oh, darlings, I said, we've got to, you know, I said, maybe I should start a company. I said, where we can just make Maasai and tribal clothing that's organic cotton. I said, because again, you know, for me, I had the thought of putting, like I wear cashmere or cotton. That's mostly what I wear. And I just the thought of putting some kind of a chemical based material on my skin. So when I wore this out over here, you know, I could tell my body was kind of like, ugh, just the thought of having that on my skin is, but I wanted to be a Maasai. I wanted to be with them, and I just didn't care at that point. But
Now, if a hyena or a lion attacks them in that second picture, how are they going to attack? What do they do to defend the sheep?
there's a spear, and I've got my spear here. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. They always carry. They've got a walking stick. They've got a walking stick, so it's not a cane, but they've got a walking stick. So here's a walking stick. I don't know if you can see this, David. That they carry, and this is what they use to kind of move the animals along, but kind of tap the animals to move them along, and carry a spear. So one end is this, and then the other is one that they can just stick in the ground and it can just stand if they need to. This is instead of using bows and arrows. Some of the tribes will carry bow and arrows. So like the Sonjo, they have livestock. They carry bow and arrows, but the Maasai and the Dahoga, they carry the spears, and they many times they will have to kill an animal. And even like there's a video I have of a little 4 or 5-year-old boy who's got a little tiny spear and his walking stick, and he's walking out all by himself to tend to the flocks. And this is another thing to think about, people. The children are taught from day one about strength and having no fear and having courage. And you have responsibility. And these little children are going out all by themselves all day long. Mother doesn't think about, there's nothing, they're going to take care of themselves. If an animal, you know, and that happened during one of our lives. A 14-year-old boy came back and you could see he was a little flustered, but a leopard had come and killed one of the sheep. And so quickly, I said that on the live. You can hear me saying, well, this is live with the tribes. We're going to have to cut this short because they all were going to go to try to bring the lamb back before the leopard came back, because he scared the leopard away before the leopard would take the sheep, because they would. I said, are you going to still eat it? And they said, yeah, it's still good. But they were sad because it was a pregnant sheep that had been killed. But again, and that was a 14-year-old boy out by himself. But it came to a screeching halt, and they all were going to go, and we got to go and make sure we get that leopard.
They still have lions in the area, or they're gone because of the smaller land?
Well, they don't see a lot of them anymore. Mateo, I mean, he talked about when he was a young boy, how he had an encounter and they did kill I mean, he's a true warrior. So when I think of Mateo, I mean, he's done it all. He's experienced all of those things.
They probably killed all the lions, didn't they? They got them out of there.
No, and that's the thing. He said the people need to understand, we are not, they think of us as lion killers. That was part of the ritual of being a warrior, that you would kill a lion. But he said, but it's not many, you know. And he said, and we always made sure that we're not doing this just for sport. It's never done for sport, because they don't want to kill, you know. And he said, and we really don't want to kill an animal when it's coming. Like right now, I just bought Mateo a whole lighting system, a solar lighting system for his boma, because over the past couple of weeks, a whole bunch of sheep and goats were killed by hyenas. It's probably the hyenas that attacked one of our tents that night. And I just said, honey, we've got to do something. So I hired a company that's going to come out, and they're going to put all this lighting to light up. That will light it up at nighttime to keep their animals safe. Because they've been trying
Mateo?
Yeah, Mateo. This is Mateo. He's my lead guide. So
I
yes,
thought he lives in an apartment. He's able to have animals too there?
no, that's only sometimes. He wants to stay with Maasai as much as possible. So he goes back to his home where his family all live, and so that's where we stayed. And so he'll do sometimes a little bit in Arusha, but then a lot of times he's also
okay, I see.
He doesn't want to get sick. He does not want to get sick. And it's just so difficult to live the Maasai life when you don't have milk and meat all the time. It's very expensive.
And so the solar lights will keep the hyenas away because of the light?
We're hoping it's going to work. So if it does, that's another plan. Oh, I would just love to be able to have a mission to be able to so you don't have to keep losing so much of their animals to the wild animals that are coming and killing all their animals. Yeah. Aside from no land, they've got to worry about wild animals. So I thought, if I can just give them a solar panel, low EMF, I was thinking all these things, what can I think of? But so that's going to be installed, I'm hoping, this weekend. So it's pretty nifty. These were the elders. that were there, and they were just so, oh, the wisdom. To see that video, Dave, if you haven't seen it, that they were talking about, it was just profound.
Is it on Instagram only or other platforms?
If you've got Facebook, the only thing is the people on Facebook have told me that if they don't have Instagram, they click on it, then they can't see it. And I didn't. So yeah, it's only, I've got to learn. I think there's a way I can actually put those on YouTube, because I do have a YouTube channel that I'm trying to get up and going, and I just feel to be able to share those out there because they're profound, to hear this wisdom. So these guys are in their 90s. This is Mateo's dad. He's 72 or 75, I can't remember. But these men are in their, they think they're in their 90s. And they were just sharp as a tack. They walk 12 to 15 miles a day. You can see they've got their they didn't have their spears at nighttime, but these are their walking sticks that they move their cattle with. They tend to their cattle. You don't retire. You don't retire when you are in these tribes. It's you, same thing. You're tending to your chores every day. This is how you maintain. But they were brilliant. And then these are the girls that would come each night and bring me my raw milk for me to have before I went to bed. This is so neat. And of course, this is a half of a liter. And I would usually drink a half of a liter to a full.
That was theirs or yours?
That was their mug that they would give me. It was like a tin. It was almost like a tin type of a mug, maybe. I don't know. But and this is the raw milk was in this container. And I loved it. Again, the wisdom. Many of the tribes were using plastic. But these guys were either using their calabash, which is what I showed you last time. That's a gourd that's made out of the gourd called calabash, or they were using stainless steel. And I thought they understood. So
is that a mother or who are those people?
These are just two of the women that they're relatives of Mateo's, and they came over and they were just so, again, always coming to check on me. Remarkable, the love. I could not believe, and always bringing me jewelry. Oh, we thought you might like this. It was just so something we don't have here. Now, this is the tent that was attacked by hyenas. Wow. So in the middle of the night, it was about, I don't know what, maybe 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I hear, David, this vicious, the most horrible ripping and tearing and growling, and it was just awful, this sound. I thought my boys were being killed. And I'm screaming because it's right outside my tent. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, oh my God. I'm thinking they're being killed. And he's like, Mom, I'm okay. I got under control. And I'm thinking, well, of course he does. He's a Maasai. But it was so close. It was just like, I thought it was a horrible thing. And what had happened is we had just had a slaughter day that day. I think it was the day I had purchased a goat or a lamb for a slaughter. And we thought, oh, we have some left over that we could have more meat the next day. So we put it in our supply tent. And the hyenas came and they took it all. They took it all. But this is one of the dogs. Now, all of the tribes, they have dogs. And the dogs help them with herding. The dogs help them with hunting. And they're very, very important to them.
Who introduced those dogs to them?
You mean over history, you mean?
Yeah. Those are not like...
No, and it's funny because all the dogs, they're relatives to each other because they all look the same. So you can tell that they're all the offspring of whoever the original dogs were that were brought in. Amazing. In the Hadzabe tribe, they all look the same. I said, oh my gosh, you can just see it's a genetic.
Were those missionaries that gave them to them or what?
When you look in history, because I being part Native American, I was always looking at my history. Dogs have always been. It started with wolf. Dogs have.
Is that a local type of wild dog that's been domesticated by them, or?
Somehow, because you guys, when you go back with a wolf, which was the first animal that first befriended by the tribes, was a wolf. And then I think over the years, through different breeding and somehow, and you go back and you can track this out as to how the different breeds came to be. But this was his name was Simba. And every morning when I took this picture, I had unzipped my tent, and he was right outside my tent. He had learned to understand. Maybe he sensed I was kind of nervous a lot and stuff. But he was always right there, very protective. And I think he was one of the dogs that helped to, once the whole thing started happening with the hyena, I think he came and helped Mateo.
Did you hear the hyena's noise?
Oh, it was just it was vicious. Absolute, the most vicious, horrifying sound.
What was the cackling thing or the?
Oh, it was just this, it was just awful. Like all they wanted was this, because you'd hear them in the distance, like if I was going and stuff, I was like, I could hear them. Like, oh gosh, what if they're out there? But it was just all they wanted was they had to get what was in this tent. But I didn't know. I thought they were ripping up the boys. I mean, it was just awful, the sound. Just horrible.
So they chased it away and to save the meat, or they lost the meat?
we lost everything that was intent that was for them that they felt was worthy of eating. But that's, I think, the same hyenas that are killing all the livestock right now. I'm hoping that the lights, and they've been trying, he's been sending me videos of them out hunting them, and you can see them, but they haven't been able to get them. And these are the animals I give. I try to give each of the tribes I stayed with, I try to give them what I knew they would value. And so I gave Mateo's family two pregnant goats, one pregnant red cow, and one pregnant sheep, so that will keep giving back food to them. And of course, this is a zebu cow. You can see the hump on the back here. And the red zebu cow is prized. They feel that that's the real genetic prized cattle to have. And this is over here. This is the Boma region. And you can just kind of see how their homes are and where the cattle and everything just stay right outside at nighttime or in the morning. This is in the morning before they get ready to leave. And then when they leave,
live in communal homes, or each family has their own home.
So this right here is his brother and his wife and their children. They live in this, but this is also where Mateo comes and stays. So a lot of Mateo's livestock are right here. So this area right here is where the lambs and the sheep stay, and the goats all stay. And then next to that, coming more towards me, there's another of all the sticks and so forth. That's where the cattle, the cows, and then they've got a special spot where calves will stay. But often in their home, this is their home, which is made of sticks, and it's got cow dung and mud and so forth, and that's packed all on it. That often you'll say the young babies that are newborn goats and so forth, they'll be right inside the bomas living with the chickens and so forth with the family. And at first I kind of thought, oh, but then you grow to love them. And it's like, I wanted them around me. You know, it's a beautiful thing. It didn't bother me at all. I thought I could easily live like this. You know, here I've always such a clean fanatic, but living with dirt, muddy floors and so forth, they keep it clean in a beautiful way with their little brooms that they make. This is when we went to the chief's inauguration. And it's very rare when it happens, because when you become a chief, it's until you die. And this is a rare kind of a chief, because there's chiefs in all the different tribes, but he's the overall chief of all the Maasai in Tanzania and all the Maasai in Kenya. And they all came. There was thousands, and you just seen all the chiefs all over were coming from all over.
Did you know this was happening when you came over there?
They had asked the chief. Mateo got a hold and said, you know, that this person's coming and she's going to be, she's researching, and would it be okay? And he was just like, I mean, it was like I was royalty. I was the only white person there. And it was like, when I walked in, it was like, you know, she's got total access to the chief. I was right in front and taking all my pictures and videos. I mean, I've got a video of him coming up and hugging me and so forth. And he texts me and sends me voice chats and so forth, because he knows how much I love the Maasai, and he knows I want to help.
How old is he at? What is he?
36. He's 36.
Is that the typical starting age of a chief?
Never know. It was a point where they needed a new chief, because the chief had either passed, because usually after death, and then they have to decide. All the chiefs of all the tribes have to,
do they vote, or they just talk about it?
It's almost like a voting, but then they come to you, and you're kind of, you know, we want you, because he's one of the most educated of all the Maasai, and they wanted someone now who is educated, because they know they're
Does he have an apartment too in the city and all that?
He'll be in Arusha, but where this took place was his boma. This was his home. And so it was just beautiful, acres and acres and acres of, you know, where the cattle were all roaming, and the sheep and the goats. But it was the slaughtering camp was to go and see this. And of course, no other woman was going there. I was the only woman, and there were a lot of warriors that were not happy with me, because I'm not supposed to be over there. She's a woman. What's she doing? But then when Mateo would translate for me, then they would start to understand. And but it was so profound. But then I'll show you in a minute, but this is the slaughter camp. And there was just, I can't remember how many cows and lambs and goats they had slaughtered, because there'd be so many people there. But they were just catering to me. And Mateo's like, what is this? It's like, hello, we're here too. They brought me a big, huge calabash full of raw milk. No one else was getting raw milk. Ooh, no one else was getting raw milk, but I don't know if the chiefs had said something, you know, make sure she gets, they brought me it was this huge thing of raw milk, which I'm holding in this picture in the middle. And then this man comes over with a skewer of beautiful boiled meat and so forth. And so my boys are all, I go, here guys, I'll split it with you, you know, but they were so amazing how the love that they were showing me, and I wasn't even a Maasai, but I think they understood that I was there to learn and to help. And they were so grateful, so grateful, so grateful. This is the night before I'm going to fly out, and the chief came to see me. So he came to my hotel, and we're downstairs in the lobby, the area where they had a sitting area, and I did a live chat with him. So there's a live chat you can actually see, and we'll do more live chats with the chief. But I just want to spread the word that I hope that somehow that we can come to the rescue, because guys, if we lose this wisdom, then we're not going to be able to continue to understand the importance of being human and what it takes to thrive, and to understand the nutrients that we need and how that nutrients is consumed. I think it's all about preparation. It's about what's used to cook them. About the plants that they're using. Plants are important, guys. And we need to understand this. To say that don't eat plants, and they aren't really eating a lot of these, they're absorbing the nutrients within the plants. And that the polyphenols, the saponins, all of these
they're not
things.
going to want it. They wouldn't eat broccoli and stuff. They're not going to eat that.
I don't think that would be to them, unless again they're becoming more contemporized and they're moving into the city regions where they're going to start eating those things. But again, Mateo will tell you, once he started trying to eat what we eat, the sickness, the emergency room constantly.
Yeah, I just got to be careful. We got to be clear about what we're saying. They're ingesting certain types of barks and herbs and things. They're not eating broccoli and
they're not. It's
spinach.
They don't really eat a lot of plants. The Maasai. Now the Hadzabi is a different thing. They do, but the Maasai, they will eat fruit that's seasonal. They will eat honey that's seasonal. Honey is not out all year long. When we were there was no honey.
How come they don't? Have they ever thought about raising bees, or they don't?
No, and that's funny because Mateo is now, because they're trying to help to raise money. So they do. They buy. They've got hives in some of the Maasai tribe. The women are doing this, and they're trying to sell when they go to the market. They're trying to sell their honey to make money. They want to be able to afford solar panels now. They want to be able to try to. I mean,
so what?
It's the cost of.
What's the chief's name here?
His name is Chief Old Tendo Quiero, but it's really Tendo is her last name. So, but for men, to show respect, you always put Ol in front of it. So his name is Chief Old Tendo, but his Quiero is his first name. But I always call him Chief. But he's just, and of course their accents are beautiful. This picture over here is Tembo, my driver. This is his grandfather. And his grandfather, he's not sure, between 90s to 100. So I just kind of guesstimated 92-ish maybe, but he could be 100. But he was unbelievable. I mean, I spent a great deal of time, and I did a live with him as well. And, he said milk, meat, and walking. That's what, for longevity. And he was sharp as can be. I mean, his skin was absolutely, his hands were just, I can say, you're so beautiful. His teeth, look up. I don't know if you can see it here. I don't know if I can move it over. Oh, fiddlesticks. Oh, darn. There's a picture behind it. Can I move this, David? I don't know if I can. Look, his teeth were just so beautiful. All of them. I could not believe, but they're very meticulous again. And we'll be talking about this. They use, I've got one here. I've got a whole bunch of sticks I brought home that Mateo cut for me. That they're always cleaning their teeth. Their teeth are so important to them, and they've always got a stick. And it's a special stick. I'm pretty sure it's coming up. Pretty sure it comes up next. Did I miss it? Oh, maybe it'll come up a bit later on. But it's a special stick that's the Salvadora persica, I think that's called, plant that and it's been proven. I researched it. That actually has all these different properties that you'll see on the screen coming up. It's like, and it's so powerful. But their teeth are pristine. And again, from the stick that they're cleaning with all the time, they're always cleaning, always. Or is it because this meat in the milk, such nutrients, but also it's so tough. They're chewing and chewing through all this, and it's just, all of them are just, it's amazing, except for the plant-based tribes, their teeth were not as pristine. And is it not just because of the plants, but because they're not getting that chewing that's cleaning their teeth and working their teeth, and there's so much to being human. So this was our second Maasai tribe we went to. And again, this is our new home location there. And we always want to make sure we had some kind of shade because the sun was so intense, especially for my skin. So we could at least get away if we had to get away from the sun. It was so powerful, so powerful. And this is the wedding. So this is the bride and groom over here. And it's very ornate. Everything's all with their just beautiful beadwork, and it's all, it's just so, I couldn't believe I was able to go. This is down at the slaughtering camp at the wedding. And again, they had massive amounts, and anyone can come. You didn't have to be invited. I wasn't invited. All of a sudden I just show up and they welcome you. And you go down and they've always got their machetes on them, all the Maasai, and they'll just take it out and they just cut your pieces off, and here you go. And it was so neat. And of course, the men were very welcoming to have me down there. They understood I was there for a reason, to learn, to study. And, but again, it was delicious. They had the soups and things going, all the body parts hanging in the trees like they do just for a short time. And then over here, these are the warriors. And I've got some amazing videos I've got put on, but I'm going to put more on as well. And they're called the Murans. Some say morons, but I did say no, that in our world, that's not a good word. It's like Murans. And again, they were separate from the wedding. They would not go to where the religion was being talked about. These are the cattle that I gave for the bride and groom for a gift. So I gave them a red cow over here, and she's pregnant. And then I gave them this sheep, a pregnant sheep. And so that was their gifts. And they were just so thankful. Here I am over here with Naisha, fiddlesticks, with Naisho. She was the mother to the groom, and she's the one that gave me the day of the wedding. She just came right out and let's just put this on you. And they gave me this and then they gave me over here this other shuka that goes around, and it was just so beautiful. Then I wanted to learn to milk a cow. And so I've got the live video we did of this one. And finally, I finally got it. It's hard. I mean, you got to really understand how to get in there. And these are some of the guys that every morning that they're members of the family. This is the groom's brother and another friend. And they all live within in the boma. And they would come out every morning. I'd unzip my tent, and they'd all be waiting to say good morning. How are you? Of course, they'd have to be translated. But the love, again, was unbelievable. And here we are again. My hair was a big thing. They all just want to keep touching the hair. So Mateo's like, okay, we gotta get this shot. It's like, so it was just really funny. And again, Naisha, every day she was coming over with fresh, and you can see how fresh it is. It's got bubbles. She'd just put that in the mug, so it's a half a liter, and she'd always bring me it in the morning and in the evening, fresh milk. I just love her. And so when we left, she was very, very religious, and she didn't have a Bible. And so I went and got Bibles in the Maasai language, and I had one given to her. So Mateo took it back to her, and I wrote to her. And so she's got a Bible in Ma, and so does his mom. I'd love to give everyone their Bibles. This was look at this man. Just pristine. Again, he's thinking 95, 100. He wasn't sure, but he was thinking again. I did a whole bunch of interviews that I had to kind of split because we kept losing our internet. But there's a whole bunch of his interviews, profound as can be. I've had a couple people comment, and I really need people to hear this, that have said that they felt some of my videos should be edited because they think they're repulsive. Because they blow their nose. I think they call it the farmer way. They blow their noses, and he did that. And you can hear me saying, oh, it's so charming, because it's ancestral. They don't have Kleenex. They don't have toilet paper. And when people find being a human repulsive, or that should be cut out, I think we need to rethink what we're saying. That's being human. We didn't have Kleenex. That's a new invention. We didn't have toilet paper, and this is how they would blow their nose. And I'm not going to change something. This is who humans are. That's being human. I don't want to be other than that. I mean, I'm not gonna do that, but I don't think I could. I think you had to be grown up to learn to do that. I don't know. But I just thought that was very hurtful when I had people commenting about the fact that they thought that should have been cut out. I don't know. I don't agree with that at all. And this is the groom. He spent a lot of time with us. He would come over, and I've got a video of me putting on with him showing how to cut the toothbrush tree. And this is what it is. It's the Salvador persica. And in Arabic, they call it mizwak. And you can actually buy these online. You can actually go, and there are companies who are actually selling this stick you can buy. So it's a traditional chewing stick. And they cut it off, and in the video show how he kind of cuts it. But then you got to bite into it. It's very hard, which again is working the teeth. And then it makes the little bristles. So it makes the little bristles you can see here like a toothbrush. I don't know if you can see this, like a toothbrush. And on the end, sometimes they'll make it into like a toothpick. So it's a double-ended. And look at this again, with what's in these plants is powerful. And this is what I understand. There's numerous there's scientific studies that demonstrate that it possesses antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral, anti-carcinogenic, which is carcinogenic isn't carcinogenic. It's your caries, that's where you get cavities. So carcinogenic means you're not going to get cavities, and anti-plaque properties. It helps to prevent those things. It's natural. And this, they have these all the time. These are growing all over the place there. And if they don't have this, they'll pick a blade of grass or a leaf, and they're always cleaning between their teeth. It's amazing. They're maintaining teeth all the time. Very important. Again, they're health conscientious, very health conscientious. Wow. Now we go to the Sonjo, different kind of a tribe. This, I thought in my studies that they're supposed to be very similar to the Maasai. They dress, they're normally supposed to dress very much like the Maasai. They're supposed to eat very much, but they are also agro. They will grow crops. They will grow a lot of fruit and beans and things. And this is where a lot of the other tribes are getting their food from the Sonjo. So here we are, we're getting ready to go. We're leaving. And this is our new home that we're going to live in at the Sonjo tribe. And so different. I was so surprised. Took me again by surprise. And this is why now, as a researcher, whenever I'm reading someone's research, this Sonjo tribe may be totally different than another Sonjo tribe, because they hardly eat any plant. They hardly eat any animal products, even though they've got they got cows and goats, but they hardly eat them. And I thought this was amazing. These were their elders, and they were not that old. They were like my age. And so this is what I saw in this community here. But their homes are different. They're beautiful. Again, you can go online. You can see the videos and the live chats with them. Their homes are peaked, but some of the Maasai also have peaked. Just the Maasai tribes I live with had the lower roofs. But they noticed this solar panel. This is what kind of gave me the idea right here. Yeah. The ones I'm doing, this one does not have the power to generate the huge lights that we're going to need to keep the hyenas away. So the panels I'm getting and we're going to make a video so people can see what I'm doing there. It's much larger because we need to have these outdoor lights that will generate a little more power throughout the night and not die on them. But the homes, again, were beautiful, pristine. She sweeps. I've got videos of her sweeping and showing, look how clean the dirt is. I know it sounds weird to say this, but in the Datoga tribe, it wasn't clean. And the flies were everywhere. Everywhere. I mean, you could, because the animals are everywhere. So they've got their fecal droppings, their manure everywhere. But Miriam, every morning she would come out and she's sweeping away and keeping it so clean. And I'm like, no wonder there's no flies. They are so pristine. They're clean. And it was in her hut. It was just so clean. This man right here had a leg problem going on, and he said it'd been going on for over a year. And you could see, I was looking, I said, my gosh, you got huge fluid retention. You've got to get this taken care of. And he's like, well, can you do something for it? So I was massaging and so forth. I said, you need to go and have this taken care of. I said, I don't know. I said, this has been going on for a year. It's not healing. And he could hardly walk. He was in such pain. I felt so awful. But then when I interviewed him, and there's a video of him being interviewed, and I said, what's your diet? And it's mostly ugali, which is the corn flour and water, fruit, greens, vegetables. And I said, well, do you eat meat anymore? I mean, we've got all these animals. What's going on? He said, maybe once a month. And milk, they hardly ever, maybe 1 cup a day. And I said, but what is the most optimum diet? And he said, meat and milk. I said, then why don't you do more of it? And he said, we become more plant-based. So in talking with Miriam, she's 25 years old. She's been married 2 years. And usually children, that's always the first question they would ask me, how many children do you have? Why do you only have 2? Why don't you have more? That's what a woman is supposed to be for, to have as many children as possible. And I said, do you have any children? And she says, no, I'm having a hard time. And I said to Mateo, I said, honey, do the women in the Maasai have a difficult time getting pregnant? He goes, Mom, it's like within a month, you're pregnant. So what's the difference? Plant-based versus animal-based. I don't know. I'm only speculating. But I know with me, I struggled. I had 3 miscarriages. I had to be on infertility to try to get pregnant. I almost lost my first daughter that's living. I had to be on bed rest for an entire 9 months because I was starting to lose her as well. Now, again, I'm celiac, which means I also have a hard time with progesterone because the body knows we aren't absorbing enough nutrients to carry a baby. But I was also a lot of plant-based though. So just a lot of things to think about in terms of health that I saw across the board. I don't know if there's a picture on this one. These guys here, oh, fiddlesticks. This man, oh, these are the warriors in the Sonjo tribe. This man had gorgeous teeth. I mean, he looked like a Maasai. This man looked like a Maasai too, but his teeth were not good. So I'm thinking when you look at the videos, you know, he's eating more meat. And this guy didn't really say what he was eating a lot of, but I'm wondering if he's more plant-based and maybe is not maintaining his teeth as well. But what a difference between the two. You would have thought, what's going on here? Why are they such extreme teeth? It was amazing. And I've got pictures of those because he really didn't want to show me the man in the red, did not want me to see his teeth. And I said, well, I just wanted to see, you know, and he had some issues going on there. But this man's teeth were, he looked like a Maasai, totally like a Maasai. This is Miriam again. She's 25 and she's struggling to have a baby, to get pregnant. And I did not see that in any other tribes. Did not see that. But very interesting.
Are they getting a lot of endocrine disruptors from putting like hot water in those plastic things?
They don't put hot water in them. It's all, this is what they just transfer their water. And again, like that they're using plastic.
I just wondered if they like boil water and then transport it in that to dispense it to different cups.
Usually when they're, but they do use plastic cups.
Yeah.
But the Maasai don't. But a lot of the tribes are starting to use plastic. And I said, I didn't want to get them fear-mongering. I just said, oh, you know, I wish I could afford to get you guys stainless steel mugs. And it's just, there's so much I want to do for them all. You know, I just don't want them becoming sick because they're having all of these new things.
Do they still not like make pottery and stuff? Can't they make
anything they can do to make life a little easier? You know,
don't they make pottery though, or did they used to? Never did.
Some will do it for just ornate things because they break and you can't. And they're heavier.
Yeah.
Right. And you can't carry much. They're going with what's going to make life a little easier.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's just fiddlesticks, you know. And so this is that we carry it on our backs, and then you walk back to the village with your water, but it's numerous times throughout the day because you need a lot of water. But it was just really, really powerful to see the difference in she's struggling, and her diet is so different compared to women who are just having so many babies and no problem. You know, and of course I wanted to ask her about her periods, but because she doesn't know Mateo, and for him, because he's my translator, they can't talk. And we tried to get them to talk with me about it, but they can't. It goes against their culture. A woman cannot talk with a man about it unless, you know, the Maasai would talk with Mateo because he was a Maasai, but there's a lot of things they shied away from. So then we got done at that was my last tribe. And on our way back to Arusha, we stopped at one of the restaurants. So this is how the restaurants look. They're kind of open with a little thing. And then they have meat hanging. And I just said, okay, let's start with one platter of lamb. And so this is one of the platters. And so they're cutting it up. And we went through that so fast. And I said, can we have another platter? And then they brought another platter. And it's freshly slaughtered in the morning and it's freshly cooked. It's amazing.
They boil it too, or they do something
over a light fire. It's not ever burned. It's cooked pristinely. Farther away from the flames. It was just so good, but again, very tough, but just delicious, And this is what happened to me on the way. So every time everyone says, you know, oh, it's so glamorous. It's just so, oh my gosh, when you travel, it's just gonna be so beautiful. But again, we're putting our lives at risk every time we go somewhere. You know, not anything glamorous. At least I don't do anything glamorous. I'm not staying in a hotel. I'm staying out in the bush. And so
did you get, is there a risk of getting things like malaria from the mosquitoes? No.
I was being attacked. As you can see my legs, I was being attacked by, and the tribes don't. They could not believe how I was just getting, it was all over. I had welts all over my face. This one, I was also burning like crazy. This is my skin is actually healing. But look right here. There is a fly called the Nairobi fly. And I didn't know it. So I get up one morning, I come out, and I'm like, I said, it's burning. I said, I'm just burning like crazy. I'm like, and Mateo's like, oh no, it's the Nairobi fly. And I said, what's that? And he goes, they don't bite, but they have an acid. If you go and touch that, wherever they were on, they will leave an acid on your skin. And it burns. Because that's what it was. That took a long time to heal. So that was the Nairobi fly. And then of course, my sunburn, and then all the bug bites. But then I broke my arm. I was climbing a tree, and because I wanted to play with the kids, and I love, but this is a different kind of a tree. I normally climb like maple or oak trees, and they're smoother, especially a maple. But the bark was so rough, and it was the limbs were really wide. I'm used to really thin ones I can hang on and I can brachiate and do curls and stuff on. So I get up there and I wanted to jump down. I normally swing down. So I'm up there. I'm trying to think how I want to swing down like I normally do. So I go to try to hang on to this big, huge branch, but the bark is so awful. It's ripping into my arm. And I'm trying to and I heard I heard my bone break. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I jumped down really far. And I didn't want to say anything to Mateo because I thought if he knows I broke my arm, he's going to say I have to go home.
Mm-hmm.
I get over it and I've broken this arm. This is like the 4th time I've broken it. And it starts shaking because it's going into like a state of shock. And he's like, Mom, why are you shaking? I go, oh, I don't know. It's probably just, it's because I didn't want to tell him I'm going into a state of shock. My arm is in shock. The pain was unbelievable. And, but it didn't go to do a complete, I've had complete breaks where you can just see the bones kind of like coming out. You got to pull it to reset it. But I think it was just a hairline fracture. I'm hoping that's all it was. But I was all cut up. And so this picture was taken quite a few days after. So it wasn't fresh. This is a couple days later. I thought I better document so I can just kind of share later on. But that was, so I was going with a broken arm the whole time. And so I kept asking Mateo, what would a Maasai do if they broke an arm? He goes, well, we would just like wrap it or something, but we wouldn't do much with it. They'll heal. I said, that's all I want to know. Okay, I'm good. Mm-hmm. And then again, so this is the end. These are all the tribes. And this is our book. And that can be found mostly, I'd say, on any place on online, but Amazon is probably our biggest place to go, and we would appreciate that. But I feel like I just rambled, and I'm sorry, David. I didn't mean to ramble.
No problem. No, that's good. I really appreciate all this work and information. It's a lot to think about.
And I think that's the key. I think the most important thing, I think the biggest takeaway is to think about our DNA. What are we designed from our specific genetic components? What are polymorphisms do we have? The MTHFR, that's another thing to think about. I've got that as well. There's just so many things, but also the plants. I'm not saying to eat them if you're carnivore, but there are plants that have benefits. I think that when I start bringing this out, I hope that people will listen and start to rethink to say, maybe that is a component that we do need that might help to, clean out our arteries or help us to handle the cholesterol and saturated fat, because it's being used in all cultures. It is being used. Absolutely.
That's fascinating. How about next time, let's look at those plants that you're researching and we'll talk about that. How's that sound?
Okay, I would love that. And if you want to do a breakdown of all the tribes' diets and their calorie breakdown that they're using and their health, we could break down. I can show you all the pictures of the teeth I've taken, just different things. There's so much to share. But David, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. It's been great. So Suzanne Alexander, you can find her on Instagram, you're on all the platforms, Facebook and Twitter, and also the book, the Ancestral, was it the title again? Say it, please.
Ancestral Diet Revolution.
Which is fantastic. I've enjoyed it myself. So thank you for your time.
David, thank you. Take care. Bye, everyone.
Take care.